This conference will now be recorded.
That sounded ominous.
Councillor Shearson, are you there yet?
Yes, I am.
Okay, morning.
Morning, everybody.
Morning. Okay. Well, since we're being recorded, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I think we've got everybody here. Is that correct, Lindsay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Was there anybody for open forum?
None received.
Okay, thank you. And I'll need we don't have mover and seconders pre-listed, so I'll ask, and I can only see a few of you, so speak up. So Barb's going to move that we confirm the agenda. Seconder, please. Brian, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, declare that passed. If there's any declaration of pecuniary interest, we can do it now or at any time. And need a motion move to for us to resolve into the committee of the whole at, well, 9 o'clock.
I'll move it.
I know how I can do. You're going to move it, Brian? Okay. And I can see Martin, so, or Jim. There, Jim put his hand up. So Brian and Martin, or Brian and Jim, sorry. Martin's going to be the next one. He doesn't know it. Yeah. Any discussion on that? All right, that's passed. So we are into committee of the whole. And now I need a motion to for us to appoint a chair. So anybody, Barb, you got your hand up? You want to chair this one?
Nice try. I was going to suggest that our mayor, John Woodbury, be chair for this committee of the whole.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I thought so.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Silence. Okay. Anyone opposed to that? Passed. Now we have the reports of officers from Liam. Staff report 2020-033, the 2021 budget. I need a mover and seconder. Jason and Michael, are you guys willing to move and second that?
Yep,
Sure.
I'll move it, John.
Okay. I think that's an easier way than me trying to see people and find out who's doing what. Okay, so that's on the table. Liam, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so we want to share screens like we did last time, Lindsay?
Yeah, I'll give you the controls. There you go.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to start with attachment 2, which shows the changes in this version of the capital special project budget compared to the last meeting. So after the report was approved at the last meeting, there was another report from Public Works which directed them to revisit their budget for consideration of returning some roads to gravel. So the changes since the last version was in the 2020 projection. Jim adjusted his fuel tank projection to 18,000 from 10, which reduced the amount available for reserves by 8,000, which impacted 2021 use of reserves by 8,000. And then he added the pulverization of road 4 back to gravel for 12,000. Which subsequently in 2022 removed $80,000 worth of cost to double surface treatment that road. And then also in 2021, he shifted 25,000 for the Victoria Street West pre-engineering design from roads into wastewater, which then was recovered from the wastewater reserve rather than taxation. And then the slight adjustment to debt to keep the roads department as a whole at 15%. So end result an extra 6,000. So now we're at 2,304,139, which is 2.05% increase. Blended tax rate impact increase. So do we want to further discuss roads before we move to other departments?
Brian's nodding his head, so I think he does.
Okay. So I guess I will shift to the, not sure how legible that's going to be on your screen, but I'll show you what page I'm on anyway. So in attachment 1, roads is.
Yeah, Barb?
Just, so Liam, you're going to be giving us the page number from the original printout deck, are you? Like, we can't read what's on, I mean, I can't read what's on the screen that's showing up.
On screen, but what I'm going to show on screen is the roads that is prepared for this report, not the roads that was provided at the last meeting.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm not sure, were paper copies not provided of the new road section? No? Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
All right.
You can increase the size of the font or the size of the picture on your screen by hitting the positive button on the right side.
Hit the button on the right
Thanks,
side
Dave.
of. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so this is. No, I need to move this over here so it's not blocking my screen. So where are we here? Okay. So there is the roads. So page 72 of 109 is the start of the 2021 roads budget.
Okay.
That's the same number as the last presentation. The printed.
It's not quite the same. The changes are on the Victoria Street West pre-engineering design. It now shows 175,000 compared to 200,000 because 25,000 got shifted to wastewater. And this pulverization of roads 4 for 12,000 was added. That wasn't in the previous version. And then the debt was adjusted, or sorry, the use of reserves was reduced because of that extra use in 2020. And then the debt numbers here were adjusted again in order, all in the intents of keeping this total department to the 15%.
Okay.
So in roads capital right now, does Jim Ellis want to talk about his capital?
Or should I just field questions? You want me to go line by line? Is that what?
I suggest we field questions unless council wants to go to line by line.
Are there any questions?
Questions is fine with me, however you want to do it. I have a few questions.
Okay. Martin, what do you think? You had your hand up.
I just have a question about one item. We can go line by line. Either way, I'll get to ask my question. Doesn't really, what everybody else wants, it's fine.
Okay, so unless anybody objects, let's go with questions. Okay, Brian, you were first and then Martin.
All right. First question I have is the Gold Hagen Loop, Jim. I presume that is in conjunction with the looping the water pipes as well, so you don't have those dead ends on the end of Gold and Hagen. But I'm just wondering how urgent or how necessary it is to actually loop the street itself. I know the road allowance is there because of the lot structure, but I'm wondering how like I say, how necessary it is to loop that street.
Okay, well, we did have it in for this year's budget, but due to the COVID restrictions and how construction started kind of slow, we backed that one off and we're carrying it forward to 21. You're correct about looping the water main. There's no sanitary sewer going in there. This is more a safety concern, especially with the Proton School there, that our plow trucks have to back up. Our collection trucks have to back down Hagen to turn around, sometimes at the daycare to turn those vehicles. So this would just create that loop. At this point in time, it was proposed to be a gravel access to go around. And then there was the developer who came along at the end of Gold Street to develop those lots. It hasn't taken place quite yet, but he would be involved with extending the sanitary sewer down to the end of Gold to service the lots at his cost, and some other storm work at his cost on Gold Street. But this basically does two main things. It loops the water main for the dead ends for better water quality, and the safety of having to back those trucks up Hagen and Gold Street for snow plowing and for waste collection services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you have anything else there, Brian?
Oh, I got a few things, but I guess, I don't know, do you want me to do another one?
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right. The Stevens Pit, fencing, the driveway, tree planting. Are we getting ahead of ourselves? It doesn't look like the First Nations challenge is close to being resolved. I'm wondering, is it necessary to invest that money this year? Being as we're not going to be drawing gravel out of there anytime soon, from what I can tell. Maybe, I don't know who wants to have a go at that one.
Well, we have, this was another item that was carried the previous year, but due to the complications, it hasn't happened. But if we don't get this pit on the radar and ready to go, we have approximately one more year of extracting gravel in Hopeville, and then we're going to be buying gravel for maintenance if we don't get this pit up and running.
So just, if I might, Mr. Chair, so just in high level numbers, what does it cost us to actually extract the gravel ourselves, all in, as opposed to purchasing gravel from suppliers? Which is more cost efficient.
We're right now a little bit more costly with what we're doing to finish off the Hopeville pit, because it's got an underwater extraction. So we're having to put that money into the drag line instead of just digging it out of the bank. But I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 our cost for gravel, as opposed to paying $8 or $9 to the pits.
And is that the price of the property purchase? Like, is that all in, that $3 to $4?
We would have to do another analysis of that to make sure everything was covered. But again, this has been dragging out. So when things drag out, it obviously costs more money to do business too.
Yeah, and I won't argue that. That's for sure. I don't know. I'm just looking for a little bit of softening of the cost this year. That's all. I have a couple others, John, but I'll let somebody else have a go. Maybe they've got the same questions as me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll do it. Everyone can ask that wants to can ask 2 questions, and then we'll start around again. Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Woodbury. Yeah, good morning, Jim. thanks for doing that extra work on the budget. The first question I had was actually the same as Deputy Mayor Milnes about, when we say it's only 30,000, but if it has to be spent, as you said, to make the project go easier for the next year, then I guess that's it. But would you think about just doing the road? Maybe, even if it saves 15 or 20,000, because that's just a question in the same vein to Jim.
Well, the way the license is situated right now is when we begin extraction, you have to have some of these things in place, and fencing would be one of them. The road building would come out of the material that's all there. It's basically just a matter of stripping leaving the existing laneway and using it, but building a road through the field to the pit. And the tree planting, well, that's something we're negotiating with Son right now. I could check. I'm not sure if that needs to be implemented automatically at the beginning, but I would think it'd have to be somewhere near the start of the process.
Okay. And the other question I had is the one item for 360. If you could just 7326 TL coned in place pave, is that price for material or what exactly is that? I need.
So that's where they mill the asphalt and lay it back down on the road surface. And this is 73 from Road 26 up to Proton Station, the town line. And then hot mix asphalt on top of that. This road is maybe a little bit further down in the study, but it's breaking up really bad as another year went on from past when that study was released. There's heavy traffic on this, heavy truck traffic. It also is, if there's Highway 10 has to be bypassed, this is a route, so this tends to see a lot of traffic, this section of road.
Okay, and with that being said, it's not really another question. So this is one of the roads that is not going to be in the list of things to be pulverized then?
No, this one's remaining pavement.
Okay, that's basically my question. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have questions at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
John Jason here. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jason. Yep.
I just wondered about the new Proton parking lot there too. Like, so are we going ahead and paving it? Or would it be best to wait till we see what's going on with this drugstore?
My understanding, as you're aware, this has been pushed off a few years now, and we've been carrying it. Actually, I don't even think we carried it in the budget last year, but we have indications that they're ready to get shovel ready for the spring. The last information from Dave is towards the project, so we have plugged it back in.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering when we're talking about trying to save some money and we're going to take pavement roads out in the rural areas back, whether we could just leave that in gravel till we get till that building gets up and see, it might change the landscape a bit or something, or what we're going to do downtown. But no, that was just one of my questions.
Yeah, you're right, Jason. It could be that this doesn't fly next year, that if it gets later and delayed, that we don't accomplish it, but that's a placeholder for now for our train of thought anyways.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Oh, Barb? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Jason's question on the new Proton parking lot, I don't see the headings at the top, but this funding for this parking lot was to come from the original sale of or exchange of lands. I know that we had originally earmarked the downtown improvement fund, but that had to be used by a certain date, and so we used it for the street lighting. Are these, like, wouldn't we have this money in reserve already because of the land exchange deal? I thought that was, it was kind of going to be a wash.
Well, I know Liam and I had a discussion on that funds, and he was going to check into it further. This isn't also just paving for this parking lot. It's I think 4 or 5 light standards going in to illuminate the parking lot. Excuse me, and some other amenities such as bicycle racks, a charging station possibly. Some more of those features have been discussed, and we do have a pre-designed layout right now.
Okay. I just thought we already had the money in reserve for it. Thanks.
Okay. Liam?
I'll just comment that I apologize to Jim. I forgot to look at that after the last meeting, so I will look into the reserves to. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what happened to those funds. I would have to dig into it, and I'll report back to council the next meeting.
Sounds fair.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just had one more, John.
Sure.
It was along the lines of Brian, the same thing that Stevens Pit looked kind of stood out to me. I personally just can't see spending any money there until we have this go ahead, which it's not like it's gonna happen anytime soon. And I think there's an elephant in the room with this whole thing that maybe we could take care of this, but that's a discussion for another day. I just can't see spending any money on it till we have the go ahead. Just an opinion.
Yep. Thank you. Well, I'm not hearing anyone else right at the moment. So Brian, if,
Mike's there.
Mike's there. Okay, go ahead, Michael.
I'm just kind of looking at the new equipment that we're going to look into, like almost $1 million in equipment. I'm just kind of wondering if there's anything there that we can look at in cutting. If, you know, we're trying to keep taxation this year to near zero versus trying to go too high. Is there anything in there that we can get through another year without spending a lot of money on replacement costs? But 2 trucks, 2 pickup trucks, like that's a fair bit.
Again, we bring some of this as a bit of a wish list. Excuse me, with council direction, we can fine tune some other areas where we feel where we can prioritize differently. But again, this is the initial goal basically. So these are things we're looking at. Yes, I'm certain there's things that could fall from the list.
Okay. Martin? You might be muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Didn't Brian have a couple?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. Sorry, I thought you had a comment about that one.
Oh, no, I do, but I thought he was in line. Sorry.
Okay. Yep.
I guess this is to Jim. Jim, you've mentioned the asphalt hot box for 50,000. If you get that, and when you get it, let's say, how does that make the mix a lot better when you apply it so it lasts longer? Is it a cost savings in that way that it actually warms up the asphalt to a better consistency so it stays on the ground longer or in the pavement?
Yeah, that's the technology that we would like to go towards. I know Grey Highlands is using it. Instead of using cold mix, you would, well, we might have to in some emergency quick time frame to do something, but this would take place of using cold mix so much and put a hot patch in, and they tend to stand up with the elements in different weather conditions. Okay. And you're actually using basically new asphalt with the application we've looked at. As I mentioned, I believe the last meeting about there are other technologies about reclaiming asphalt that you have to use emulsions with also to bring its rejuvenate the older materials. But we're hearing there's not as much success with those type of technologies.
Yeah, that's true. I was actually listening to a podcast last night, and they did mention using that question I asked at the last meeting, if you could use some of this pulverization, but apparently it gets so dry, it's not good for now. So if this is not taken off, there'll be cost efficiencies definitely down the road. So that's what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Hopefully there's benefit in it, in that application. The other thing there was mentioned about the 2 plow trucks. One is a replacement for a unit. The other one is adding an additional single axle truck to the Dundalk fleet. As these subdivisions keep growing, we need to expand that fleet and service. So again, that's one that could possibly be pushed another year away. Again, we're challenged with where we're going to store this equipment. Is it going to have to sit outside?
Okay, thank you. Brian.
Thank you, John. And I guess, Jim, I'm a little bit frustrated. And I see this over and over every year. As you described the wish list. And council's at quite a disadvantage when you say, well, we've got a wish list, because I'm no expert on this equipment. And I dare say that most of council isn't either, as to, you know, the condition that it's in, how urgent it is to need to be replaced. We rely on the roads department, yourself, to tell us definitively it needs to be replaced or it doesn't, or indeed we need to add to the fleet, rather than present us with a wish list. I mean, I've got a wish list here too of equipment I'd like to buy, but the reality is that I can't, and I can't justify buying all new stuff and going in further into debt. So how many pickups do we have? I think we have 3 or 4. How many do we need? The wet blade mower, is that more efficient than spraying with a broadcast sprayer? I know there's, I hear it from people, the weeds are getting away from us and the roadsides. Something needs to be done, but I don't see justification for spending $50,000. Is it 50 or 30 on the wet? Yeah, 50,000 on a wet blade mower. Is that more efficient, or is it just going to end up smashed? I don't know. So I have a number of individual questions, but that's my overarching concern with when I see a list of equipment and described as a wish list. I guess I'm looking for a little more justification on. I'm looking for a lot of justification on some of this equipment, and further to my concerns with the 1 ton last year. Can we buy good used stuff? There's lots of good used stuff out there. I think it takes a bit of effort to find it, but there is good used stuff out there, and maybe we've got to the point where we can't justify buying brand new for stuff that isn't critical frontline equipment. So those are my comments. I guess I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay. Jim, would you like to comment?
Yeah, sure. It's a wish list in how I worded that. We hear that roads is having increasing budgets, so we increase what we would see that would fit into operations and hopefully help in other ways in operations on the operational side. So the wet blade mower, yes, can do maybe 2 things at once. We tried to get one in this year to do applications for us. We just received a quote 2 days ago, or sorry, it was yesterday, from the contractor. He wants to come in now. Do I want to spend $8,000 at this time of year to wet blade? I don't think so. So And that's only for a certain couple segments. So these are technologies that can be beneficial, we believe, in the future and help with operations. Again, like there's expansion in the township. That's why there's an additional truck. You know, maybe wish list isn't quite the word, but anyways, those are our concerns and where we think we have to target.
Okay. Barbara?
Thank you. Jim, I can see the benefits, the cost savings on the operational side of, you know, various items. The growth is dictating that, you know, we're going to need these equipment. I want to come back to a comment you made that, you know, where are we going to store all this equipment? Storing things outside leaves it subject to, you know, deterioration due to the weather and vandalism. Certainly, maybe we need to, maybe Dave can speak to what the status is of I guess where we're going to go, where we're going to store all this new equipment in Dundalk or elsewhere before we go out and approve the purchase of it as well. Not sure what the status is of that.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, so maybe I'll cover a couple of the comments. I'm not sure that maybe wish list is the right term, but it's a term where you're using today. Some of this equipment we have to, because we've done it in the past, we've kept older graders and got rid of newer graders because of reliability. And the cost of maintenance is pretty huge on transmissions and engine repairs and all that sort of stuff. So there is a certain level of reliability that we need in our fleet. And I think that's really important to acknowledge that we've kept older equipment that was reliable and you know, got some stuff out of the fleet that wasn't as quite as reliable. So, and reliability is important when you're talking about you know, maintaining roads and levels of service and risks that we have. Now there is some things that we need to ensure that, you know, we have available to our staff to use, but there is certainly some things we can extend life on. Again, I think we need to take this list into consideration that these are things that we can, you know, extend a year or two, but extend a year or two, extend a year or two, extend a year or two, they soon get into that more need for more maintenance. So there's that balancing act. As far as storage, I've got a report coming to the next council meeting that will talk about you know, facilities and storage and expansion of that in certain areas where we need more space in our fleet needs. So that will come to the December 2nd meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions, anyone?
Yeah, John, Sir Jason here.
Yep, go ahead.
Not really, I guess more of a comment on maybe on the previous meeting we had. We talk about that the growth is going to pay for these extra trucks and extra graders, and I'm just wondering, is this growth going to pay for it? I'm the same as Brian. You know, I'd like to buy a new tractor every year too, but it just doesn't work. And a new every 3 or 4 years get a new one, but this doesn't work. And I'm just concerned that this growth is not going to pay for all this stuff on our wish list. That's just a comment.
Okay. I don't know if anyone wants to make a comment about that. I see a good portion of it's coming out of our development charges.
It's Michael here. I thought I only seen 150,000 coming out of DC. The rest of it's all coming out of taxation.
Yeah, you're correct. It's 150 coming out of DCs.
And I just like the assets that we're replacing, like what we're getting for those assets, $25, $22, $1,000. Like, I'm not sure what these trucks are like, but to keep one of those assets for a spare and getting 20,000 for it, to me, it makes sense to keep it versus giving it away for 20, unless it's totally done, right? But it's not very much for a backup truck.
Mhm. Okay. Any questions or comments? Or did you want to comment about that truck, Jim?
Yeah, we currently keep one backup truck in the fleet. So we are carrying a model that is had a lengthy lifespan already, but it's the best of what we have basically, and we do keep one in reserve for those times.
Okay. Brian, you had something?
Yeah, I guess I was going to ask, Dave made the comment there, and I recognize the critical frontline equipment that needs to be available all the time. You know, your plow truck, those types of equipment need to be ready to go all the time. And generally speaking, the newer the equipment, the better reliability you have. It doesn't hold true all the time, as Dave alluded to earlier, but generally that is the case. But I'm wondering, you know, we have lots of equipment needs that are not critical frontline, you know, pickup truck, for instance. I just wish we could have a little more effort into looking for good used equipment that isn't critical frontline stuff. You know, the pickup trucks is an example, but there's others. But you know, the pickup trucks, we're not driving 500, 600, 800 kilometers a day, and we're not a long distance from anything. So, you know, to put a brand new pickup, for instance, in town, in my mind, doesn't make a lot of sense. A pickup truck that is already depreciated 2 or 3 years, like a demonstrator or something that's come off lease from a local dealer, makes far more sense to me to spend maybe $25,000 to $30,000 on a decent pickup rather than $50,000. I wish we put a little more effort into looking at those types of things than just saying we need a brand new one. End of story. Put it in the budget. We need a new one. I see Dave's just busting a gut to get at me there, so that's fine. That's all I got to say there.
Okay. Well, then let's hear from Dave.
Turn and mute. Okay. So I want to make sure council understands, by and large, we can buy for value, not necessarily a lower price, but for value, we get better prices for new versus 1 and 2 year old pickup trucks by bidding through RFP process and getting government discounts and dealer discounts. When it comes to buying, you know, relatively short use pickups, they're very, very expensive retail wise. So that's one thing. I mean, we have demonstrated in the past, and maybe what we should do a better job of is presenting what the fleet is and realizing, you know, the age of some of this stuff that we are using. I mean, we bought a used truck from the county, and I keep hearing it's going to go, you know, this year, but it seems to still stay around for these very reasons that we keep extending the life. So I think it's good. We need to acknowledge maybe better the fleet that we have. But again, every year we bring you a list and we end up cutting back so we can meet budget, and we can do that again. But we need to recognize that there are needs to replace some of this equipment for various reasons, and maybe we need to do a better job on reporting why these units are being replaced rather than just presenting them like we are. Because if we don't keep up our fleet, I mean, when we started, in 2000, some municipalities brought in some pretty decent equipment and some brought in some pretty bad stuff. So we had to do a lot of investing, and we don't want to get back to that where we're heavily investing 1 year. And if this year we are investing heavier, we maybe need to cut back. And I think Jim can work at doing that.
Okay.
Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just, you know, with Jim, if he's going to look at that again, and I know it was kind of mentioned in there that, you know, we have like a roads budget of X amount of dollars. So he was just
trying to spend all his money to get to that. But I mean, I think when we put the extra money in roads, it was to fix the roads, not for new equipment. It was to maintain the roads too. So I think we need to refocus on that, you know, that's the reason what council went after when we wanted the increase, was to, you know, get that brushing done, get the grass cut, you know, fix the potholes, get the sides of the roads graded where the pavement is, stuff like that, not new equipment. But anyway, I know we need some of the new equipment to replace some of it, but at what we do need.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Thanks. So I can appreciate, Jim, that in order for you to better, or your plan to better maintain our roads and cut grasses and get the ditches and the weeds under control and fix the potholes, a certain level of equipment is required in order for that to be efficient operationally, as well as so that the fix can last longer, like the asphalt hot box. I get that, and I'm not convinced that a 4x4 pickup at $50,000 isn't going to be a used truck, given what we went through the last time trying to even get someone to bid on a used truck, to find a used vehicle. And then, you know, what we don't understand, is that a crew cab? Is that to carry more people? Like Dave said, maybe if we understood better what that pickup truck is going to do and what it's replacing might be helpful. But given what we went through in the last bidding for a pickup truck, I'm not even sure we'd get one for $50,000. I do understand and appreciate that we're trying to keep the budget lower this year, maybe a little artificially lower, given everything that everyone's going through. With $500,000 that we had in surplus and transferred to reserves, and certainly I would expect, Liam, that our growth in assessment value, or our assessed growth, is going to continue somewhat into 2021 and from 2020. Have we considered that in our numbers, and could we take more from reserves this year?
Okay, yep, go ahead, Liam.
So as for reserves, the roads reserve is actually depleted with this 2021 budget. That's why there is debt being proposed of, what is it there? Almost $1.2 million, because the roads reserve itself is depleted. The reserve you probably think of that has funded is maybe the tax stabilization reserve, which right now is operating funds. So council could tap into that reserve as well, but and then it's just shift between operating and capital. So, but the purpose of the tax stabilization reserve is to capture the unexpected bumps in the road on the operating side of things, and I'm not saying not necessarily to reduce the amount to raise from taxation, because that sometimes, I know you have to reduce the impact this year, but then you also have to consider the impact in future years. So if council cuts one of these projects, and just don't focus on reducing this year's taxation, focus on the impact it's going to make on next year's taxation and the debt levels that are going to be required to meet the levels of service that it requires.
Okay, thank you.
I think Jim Ellis had his hand up as well to respond.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so, excuse me. Phil's putting on about 50,000 K a year on a pickup truck on his travels. The next pickup truck is the Winter Patrol pickup truck that's usually stationed out of Dundalk, which we try and keep as a newer unit. It's probably got the 50 already on it, but it's pushing quite a few Ks, more so in the winter, driving the township on patrols. The plow truck that's on here for replacement is unit 209, which is a 2004 truck. So we've already got 16. By the time we order it, it'll be another year if we proceed. So we're getting 17 or 18 years out of a truck. I don't know how much more you want to keep trying to invest in them, but they come to a point that you can't invest in them to run out every day the way they are. You know, we're carrying dead here on a sidewalk machine. I just got a text here. Thank you for doing the sidewalks. And this must be sidewalks that we weren't maintaining last year. You have no idea how much the community loves this. Many people talking about it, I told them. Thanks again. So we are expanding community in Dundalk. And that is why there's another plow truck. We may be able to get another year because we haven't assumed all the subdivisions. We are plowing them, but we are getting some costs back on them. But soon we're going to be at a level that, you know, we're going to be 8 or 9 hours getting to a street, and we'll be at levels of service that they see in big cities where maybe your street gets plowed every third day or every third snowfall. So these are the curves we're trying to keep ahead of.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments? And I can't quite see everybody, so you'll have to just speak up.
Jason here, John.
Yep.
To Liam's point there, I understand what he's saying, looking ahead, and we all have to look ahead in our personal finances and on the government side of it. But we're in a different situation here. We're just talking before the meeting about how this could get locked down. And if this economy goes south or the interest rates go up 2 or 3%, we're not going to have to worry about too many years ahead because stuff's going to, I know I sound like a downer, but I just think we're in a different situation this year. And we just got to step back and take a look because, like I said, if stuff gets shut down, there's a lot of hurt out there already. And if those interest rates, they don't have to go to 10%. If they go to 4 or 5, 6%, you know, we're in a lot of trouble. So I think this is a year to just step back and just play the safe road. Just a comment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I just had one further question, John, if I might.
Sure.
And it relates to the Stonehill Road culvert project. Jim, the Stonehill, is that up on 23 there at the town line? Is that the Stonehill that you're thinking of, or where is that project?
Yes, that's where it's at.
So if that is the case, is our neighbor to the north going to contribute to that, or where
I've been in discussions. Yes, that is half the cost. This is a cold in place or a cold stream that has a very lot of fish habitat to it. So we're looking at other alternatives for that replacement, open foot box culvert for fish habitat, those type of things. It's a very sensitive area. It's had extensive cribbing done with stone and timbers. Whoever did that back a long time ago, that would be removed and have to go in with some sort of retaining type systems. It's a small stream. It's complicated with the habitat there. We've just recently had an entrance, and there's I'm not sure about where the building application is, at the south east corner there has been approved for development. He got the laneway and equipment in there this year. The culvert's failing. There's holes in the top. We put steel plates over it to carry it for the time being. I've met with SVCA out there a few times now. They're in agreement that we looked at some other alternatives of pushing a pipe through or something, but that's not going to be a solution that's viable. If this guy continues to develop, we're going to have to load restrict this bridge because he won't be able to carry concrete trucks back over it it's gonna collapse and fail. So it's kind of hit the radar here fast. It's not really been in our bridge inspections, just because the town lines kind of were county and the counties kind of dropped off the map with some of those. So this is one that's kind of came up pretty quick and we're looking to try and help resolve it.
So I guess I would, and I can appreciate that things falling apart and you need to do something, or we need to do something with it. If it's on the town line, does that not make it a county responsibility? I believe the county retains responsibility for a number of structures on the old town lines. Why would this one be any different? Or has that changed?
Well, they've dug up some information from a long time ago, and this stems back to, excuse me, the Red Bridge that's closed over the Melanchthon Highway 89 area. They have some wording that they found out about size of decks and what qualifies for the span that they'll maintain. And this bridge here that we're talking about, Stone Hill, would not fit under that criteria of a county jurisdiction bridge.
All right, thanks, Jim. I guess that's the county's interpretation. I'd like to hear it from them, but anyway, I can appreciate it's a delicate project. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on roads?
Just one to Brian's there.
Yep.
So if that bridge is supposed to be county, like under the asset management plan, that bridge would have to be on our bridge. So when we do our inspections, it should have been inspected if it's on our books. If it's not on our books, then it's got to be the counties. I know you said it kind of, it's one of those ones that didn't get, but I'm just kind of wondering how something like that could happen if it's one of our assets.
I'm not sure, but it hasn't been identified in any of the bridge studies since they started. So either it got overlooked or they thought that it was county jurisdiction, that it got bypassed, but that's where we're at with it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, then let's move on to the next. Liam, I guess we're
Okay, so I guess do we want to stick with Jim and move on to solid waste? If
Sure.
Any just things the council wants to discuss there? If my screen wanted to respond.
Michael here.
Yep, go ahead.
I see that we have in there carts and 2 roll-off containers. I'm just wondering, with everything that's going on with the Blue Box program, are we wanting to buy a whole bunch more stuff, but we're not sure what we're going to do if someone's going to pay us to look after this service, or 2023 is coming up. Are we buying more than we need to get to that point? Or can we just go with 1 roll-off container versus 2? Like, are containers falling apart? I'm just kind of curious.
We've been rehabbing them. We've been in a program with that. So we haven't actually taken any container that we've had out of service. They're all still in there. We are challenged sometimes with being able to shuttle bins and keep things moving, and a request to have a bin for something else, one of our own renovation projects that gets tied up, or we provide service like to Maple Grove during the fall for a leaf container. So we need to expand the fleet. We could cut it back to 1. That's fine. We can start with 1. As far as carts, they're kind of an in and out. We need to supply carts to keep the waste surface going as it's expanding with development. But you are right, we are looking at negotiating. We've been told we're going to be a 23 transition. So those negotiations will start to come. And whether we keep providing the recycle side of things service. That will take on some ownership with the negotiation of purchase for the Blue Cart part of it, I would expect. So we just have to stay tuned a little bit on that. But the carts, we just had an order come in because we're depleted again. There are some life issues. These carts have been around for 18 or so years, so they are failing the odd one here and there with the plastic, more so at the wheelbase kind of thing, breaking, but some are being replaced as ongoing assets that we currently have in use.
Barbara?
But some of those, the new carts that for new development, they're actually purchased by the property owner or the builder. They're not free anymore, correct? Other than if your cart is damaged and we replace it.
Correct, yeah. And that's where Liam considers it an in and out kind of thing for carts, because we are getting reimbursed for the sale of new carts.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I want to clarify that yes, there's 42.5 in the budget there, but then there's also 42,500 of revenue projected. So there's no hit to taxation, because the assumption is the majority of the carts, well, for simplification for budget, there's no impact to taxation, but the reality is there's a few $100s a year impact when we have to replace a broken cart.
Right. Thanks. I noticed that.
Thanks. Dave, you had something?
Yeah, just I want to make sure that we're still going to need to provide a waste collection system in some manner after 2023, because this is only just transitioning Blue Box, not waste and compost and everything else. Chances are highly likely, I mean, I think a very big percent, that they're going to come to us. There's no way that a company is going to run a collection truck around the municipality and want to collect just blue recycled material only. So I would say, with the infrastructure we have in place, but you never say never, but let's not lose sight of the fact we still have other materials that we have to collect and dispose of and process and so on in our system.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments about this?
I have a couple of questions, John.
Sure, go ahead, Brian.
The first question it relates to the carts, as Councillor Jabreen was mentioning a minute ago. Liam, if this is simply an in and out and we're not actually acquiring any assets, why would that 42.5 be on the capital? Why would that not be an operational expense?
Because our carts is a capital purchase. We just happen to charge somebody for that cart. So we own the cart, so it's our capital.
So the taxpayer is buying the cart, yet we retain ownership.
Yes, it's the same thing as if we pay charge for a water meter, but we still own the water meter.
Okay. The other question I had was, and I guess this is to Jim, the waste relocation in the old fill area. I presume that's at the Egremont landfill site. I'm just, Jim, could you maybe expand on that a little bit, what that project is, please?
Yeah, so it's come up to council a few times over the number of years. We've been looking into this for a few years now. It's included with our submission for our new development and plan for the landfill. But this is the old site at Egremont, the hill that's already there. If we take that and sort through a little bit of stuff, if we get some metal or whatever tires out of it, but basically it's all going back into landfill, being relocated. But our engineer consultant has identified that we have another 7 meters to go down through our ECA. So that equates to about 25 years of capacity that's sitting underneath there that we can gain if we go through the exercise we projected it out to be a 3-year type project to do it, mostly in the winter, and do it in phases. And but we're still waiting for ministry approval on it.
So is that the project that has been tried off and on over the years? I remember a few years ago there was a trommel machine brought in there, and it failed miserably because the material that's in there now is greatly deteriorated, and it's very difficult to sort it out. But nonetheless, the landfill space underneath, I can understand, is very valuable, but it'll be interesting to see whether the contractors can come up with something better than what they've done in the past. Thank you.
No, that's not that anything we've done with reclaiming landfill. That unit was used for compost compost finishing, and was a unit that was not very successful to the units that we're getting now in, but that's for compost finishing.
That machine, did Dave remember this? There was a machine we brought in there years ago, and it was a trommel, and it didn't work worth a hoot. Much to the chagrin, but anyway, thanks very much, Jim.
Yeah, maybe I'll just jump on that discussion. There was one, it likely was before Jim's time in the early years, that we thought we could pull out metals and recapture that, and pull out soils and compact the material in I guess in greater density that was still left to be compost broke down in the landfill. But like Brian said, it was going to be very, very costly. And I mean, I'm sure Brian even remembers we went over to Simcoe County, I believe, and took a look at what they were doing. For what we would capture, I don't know. Anyway, we'll wait and see what happens.
I think the mayor is muted.
I think you're right. Go ahead, Barb.
I thought, oh, am I frozen? No, I'm still good. Yeah, so for the benefit of new council members that were not on council in 2017, when we agreed to apply for the EA, I think I'm going to use the right initials, Jim, but with the new compactor that we invested in, it was discovered that if we could use that tool, that compactor, and redistribute cell 1, we would, as Jim indicated, gain 25-year lifespan in the landfill. Jim, you may have better explanation than I am, but it's difficult when you're new to council and we haven't actually reviewed all of what is still pending. Why it's taking 3 years or more for the province to approve our application is, well, it's beyond me, but we don't even have a status report from them, correct, Jim?
Yeah, I checked a few months ago with our consultant again, and they haven't heard anything. They sent another email. There hasn't been a response other than it's under review.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, so that whole process maybe, could be explained to council again as a refresh, and to bring the new council up to speed on what transpired back in the application days. But it's to use the compactor that we do have that actually does work and reclaim some of that space.
Mm-hmm. Yep, thanks. Martin?
Yeah, this is for the old fill area again. Just started me thinking. So it's 30,000 to get this in relocation done, and if that gives us 21 meters, that's And if it gives us 25 more years life, that's not a very big investment to get 25 more years the way I'm looking at it.
Mhm.
So I think it has to be done, especially when we're looking at the blue box. And if they standardize everything, there's going to be stuff that used to go in the blue box that's going to end up in the dump. So from what I've gathered, they can't recycle everything now. So they will be picking and choosing what goes in the blue box. So we do need that 21 meters. So I think the 30,000, this is one of the things that we're looking 20 years down the road. So
Mhm.
just a comment.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Barb?
Jim had his hand up there. I think he wanted to
Oh,
respond to Mark.
Okay. Jim, go ahead. I can't see you now.
I just want to correct you there, Martin. It's 7 meters that we can go down, so about 21 feet. And this was phased over 3 years, so it was a total of 150,000 to reclaim. Was what the budget number we're looking at over 3 years.
Okay. Go ahead, Barb.
That's what I wanted to clarify. It's actually a transfer to capital reserves, or transfer to reserves over a period of a number of years, so that when we do get approval, we have the funds to actually perform the task,
Okay.
not just $30,000.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I needed that clarification. So thanks, Barb and Jim.
Okay.
Jason here, John.
Go ahead, Jason.
Just wondering where we're at or where we're standing at the upgrades at the Dundalk transfer station. I see it in here. Did I forget? Are we going to go ahead with that, or?
I brought a report to council that for this year, we were going to replace just the one end of the wall that's the most deteriorated, and a very reduced budget on that. And last talking with Phil, we have the blocks. We haven't done the work yet. It's to come here, but it can still be done at this time of year. So. But we're not going into the big expansion of the sawtooth at this point in time. I think we'll, we've alluded to, see what the blue box is doing and a few other of these programs that are getting shifted and discontinued onto the producers. So we're holding off on just doing the bare needs at this point.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on this? No, I'm not hearing anyone speaking up, so we can go on to the next then. Yes, Liam?
Yes, so I think the next one on his line here is probably cemetery.
Okay. Any questions, comments about the cemetery?
The only comment I would have, John, is that at $5,000 a year for the foreseeable future, I think we are leaving ourselves a little light there, but for the current year, it's probably accurate. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Well, that one seemed to be pretty easy.
Jim has something to say.
Oh, Jim? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, I had this conversation with who are Shelburne Memorials, who's been doing our foundation's repairs. And yeah, some of those old headstones out at the front especially have a little bit of rickety to them. And he discussed that as long as we have a program in place and we're working towards and doing things, that if something happens, God forbid, to somebody, if something falls on them while they're in there, that because we're being proactive and trying to establish and work towards having them rectified, that our liability becomes reduced due to the fact that we have a program and we're working on it. So this is insurance policy in my mind too, that we need to continue this practice moving forward. So.
Definitely not arguing that. I'm just saying that I know from my own experience out here at Drumore, some of those foundations, if it's a big stone, it can be well over $1,000 to do one foundation. So, and there's a lot of old stones in that Dundalk Cemetery. So going forward, I can see there's going to be need for more funds than what is being allocated. But as I said, for the current year's budget, it's probably pretty close.
Yeah. Okay.
And just in the past 2 years, on that budget, we've been getting about 6 to 8 headstones fixed up. But you are right, there are some that are probably gonna, but that's what we've told the contractor, that here's our budget, what can we do with it? So.
Okay. Well, if there's no more comments on that, we can move on to the next one.
Okay. Which I think it's wastewater. Yes.
Okay, any questions on wastewater?
Just again, we're looking in the technologies. We're having a discussion with Triton tomorrow afternoon on some of these, where we're going. We had inflow infiltration study, a monitoring done. We're discussing that report. So we're still working on where we actually are going with this. The assimilative capacity is in the ministry's hands now on the what the receiving stream can accommodate. So it's progress, but it's slow. But as soon as we have more information, we'll bring it to council.
Okay. Brian?
On that, Jim, the wastewater treatment plant future needs, is a full treatment plan factored into the current rates? It's like at some point that we're going to need a full waste treatment plant. Is that expense factored into the current increase in rates?
It was brought up in discussion for sure with Mr. Surratt when we did the study. It is built somewhat in there, but going again with the growth development, it's supporting changes in rates right now that are actually seeing a bit of reduction. As mentioned about Grey Highlands and their water study, they're looking at a 50% increase to their residents that are on the systems. So I think we're in a good place. He has looked into it, but until we have a final number, that will have to be adjusted once we really dive into it, and especially if it's a full plant, there will be change more likely down the road.
Go ahead.
So just to follow up on that, Jim, you said that because of the new residences in the township, primarily Dundalk, well, of course in Dundalk, the individual rates have come down a little bit. Why would we move our rates down a little bit when we know in the future they're going to have to come back up and ramp up to provide for a full treatment plant?
Well, that's why we hire these consultants to do this work for us. They see the changes, they understand the approaches. This is the methodology to be considered, and it is factored in for replacement for sure. again, we were talking add-on technologies at this point, so that pushes it out a little bit further in the working of the maths.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
Just to further, Michael here.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael, and then Dave can jump in. Go
Just
ahead.
to further Brian's thing, the study that was done, I think what it's going to do, it's going to make it fair to the, you know, the single person that's living in a house that he's not paying or she's not paying as much for the service for the amount of water she uses versus a family of 4 or 5 that'll actually be paying what they should be paying. You know, that's one of the biggest complaints I hear in town is our water bills are too high for single families, you know, with one person. But as I said, I think that the plan itself will work.
Okay. Dave, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, and just to, Michael makes a good point, but I want to jump back onto that same discussion. The rates were adjusted based on a lot of things, but one of the major things that took place was based on more history of pipes in the ground, how long they last, and how long they last in Dundalk is a bit of a benefit to our community. So they did change some of the depreciation of assets that are in the ground, that they're lasting longer, where previous rate studies wrote them off over shorter periods of time. We took a rather, I guess, a conservative approach, and now we're looking at more reality of what these assets can be written off, and therefore less depreciation costs on each water bill. So it may appear that rates are going down, but we do have the benefit as well of growth to continue to support that future investment. That's kind of the rationale of that whole rate study.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we can move on to the next one, Liam.
Which I will just watch her.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the water side?
Michael here.
Go ahead, Michael.
This is maybe a little off topic, but I'm just kind of wondering when this COVID goes away, that if there is a way that we could get a project that someone could actually see in one of those pumping houses, the technology and everything that's in there since Walkerton. I don't think a lot of people realize here in the village how much technology and the changes we have done in the last 10 years, maybe. I'm not sure how long ago Walkerton was, but it's longer than that, I think. But just the technology that's involved in today's water to make it safe for drinking. I don't think a lot of people know. I don't know if you can do like a walkthrough and have someone explain, but I think the residents of Dundalk need to see more stuff like that so they understand, you know, this is the reason why you pay this amount for water. And I don't know, it's just something that we need to think about down the road.
Yep. Yeah, probably could be done maybe with a video or something that instead of having people actually walk through and things. So yeah, but that's a good idea because I get that sometimes, people asking, you know, well, just all you need is the well. Like there's not that much more to it, and there is. You're right. It's quite a complicated system.
Jim has his hand up.
Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, so time's flying, but it's been 20 years. It's the 20-year anniversary for Walkerton this past May. And yeah, the technology, whatever's happened is due to Walkerton, what we see in our pump houses today. And we've been discussing and looking with our waste promotion and not being able to get to the schools with COVID and everything else, but we do have some budget there, and we've been discussing looking at purchasing some better quality video equipment and a computer that can do some graphics with it and other things for the waste promotion and education. But this would tie in if we to use it like we've suggested in other departments, film the pump houses or whatever, put those up on the website as videos. Those would be good tools for the public. So we are still looking at that. We need to get back and have a discussion about that technology that we're looking into. But those are good things. Just want to bring the council's kind of attention here. Like the last number of years, we've been having to chase development a little bit. So, you know, we had to put money into Elm Street. We had to put money into Rose Lane. We have to put money up in Doyle Street to help and chase development tie in and what actually some of it our costs. We came with a philosophy this year that, you know, we've got other aging infrastructure in the town that needs very dire upgrades sooner than later. And a portion of that is Victoria Street. Obviously, Main Street was a big project, and we're looking to head with the county in 26 again for Main Street West. But we need to start thinking about Victoria Street because it keeps getting left behind. There's a lot of work to be done there, especially stormwater. It really requires stormwater and curb and gutter. So that's why we, in these budgets, we put in for designing for, and water main needs again are a big thing on Victoria Street for replacement. Sanitary, we're going to be doing video and checking in. That's what this preliminary work's going to do. But we're also hoping too to roll the dice, and if we have a shovel-ready project like Victoria Street that we can get a grant for or whatever, that we're shovel-ready and ready to go with design. So that's part of our philosophy and thinking too. But we're also looking at doing this so we can bite it off in little sections and do, you know, from street to street and start to work towards it. But we need the big picture plan to be able to incorporate it properly, because our biggest challenge right now is the stormwater aspect and how all that storm's got to be picked up and carried throughout that whole street, right from Ida to Russell.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Barbara.
Thank you. Just to go back to your comment, Jim, about video equipment, upgrading some video equipment in order to create some waste and water promotion and education. Could that not come out of, and this may be a question to Dave, the modernization fund, or more recently that COVID fund? Because we're not able to continue our service in the schools and our education in the schools because of COVID restrictions. That might be a tie-in that we could use some of those funds for. I think it's a great idea, just finding ways of how we can use some of those funds that are already at our disposal.
Yeah, I mean, there's options that, you know, if we get creative enough, for sure, video equipment to do that type of promotion of our services would be something to modernize and so on. I still think that, you know, I would like to see, you know, like school tours, because there's nothing like kids to see and feel and touch things in our community and take those messages home to parents. So I don't think we should lose sight of that, but there are creative ways for those busy people that can't do that, like that video thing. So for sure we could do, you know, we just need the ideas and then the impetus to the project in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Brian.
To that point, and I agree with Councillor DeBreen, it's very valuable to have the community see what all is involved in putting clean water, for example, out of every tap in the township, and what's involved in getting that water there. But I would suggest, rather than buying the computer equipment, the software, and learning how to run it and all the rest of it, there are some incredibly talented people in the township that know how to do promotion. They know how to do all that technical stuff to put it all together and put it on the screen. I think that would be far more valued investment to do something like that rather than try to do it ourselves. But just a thought. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Looks like we can. Oh, Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, looking at all in the water and what have you, that was one of the things that impressed me the most when we first got elected. The impetus on our responsibility for water because of Walkerton. And, you know, I think it was mentioned it's been 20 years now. That's almost a generation, and we do tend to forget. So I like this idea of education and, you know, just showing people what is involved, because it's totally changed. And when you look at the items that need to be done, we have to do them, as far as I'm concerned, because that's what we were told when we first came elected, that water is very important, and we are on the hook if we let it go. So it's education for everybody. So just a comment.
Yep, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else on this, we can move on to the next topic.
All right, I think that finishes off the public works section. So I suggest we jump to the library, page 60.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Jim. So, okay, Liam, we can move on to the library. Any questions or comments on the library?
Sorry, what was the page number for the library, please?
60. 60 of 109.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Michael here.
Go ahead, Michael.
Just kind of curious on the 15,000 for furniture. Just kind of wondering what that's for.
Liam, Jessica's not on the call.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you or Dave can speak to that.
I believe it was for putting furniture in the old EDO office as an expansion. That's why 13.5 is coming from development charges.
Hang on, Jessica. Are you there, Jeff?
I thought Jessica was on the call.
Yes, she is. Sorry, that was my mistake. She is.
Okay. Jessica, if you'd like to comment on that furniture?
Is she muted?
No, not that I can see.
No.
Just to follow up to that question, I'm just kind of wondering, you say the DC charges are going to cover the most, but there's only $1,500 that we're paying. Is that DC charges then can only be stated for that, or can that DC charges be used somewhere else? That'll be to Dave or Liam.
Yeah, so that would be based on the flexibility of moving it within the library. It couldn't be moved into another department. And it depends how specific the project is. If it just says furnishings, it could be moved within the library itself. For this situation, I believe it's furniture for, yes, the old EDO office to do some of that computer virtual education offering for, you know, the community.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There she is.
Yay.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know what was going on there. But yeah, it's I was told what you just said is for what the furniture is for.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Brian?
A question relating to something it's not on the sheets here. At least I don't see anything referring to it. And this may be a question for Dave. Our building department has been in the library now for what, 8-9 months almost. Is the library getting any compensation from the building department in that regard?
No, they're not, and that hasn't
not?
been a consideration. Well, with a decision of council, we can do that. Because we just haven't, we haven't really considered that, and that's an option. It would be a cool way of getting some money maybe out of that reserve and allowing it to help with growth in the library.
Just to be clear, in the budget right now is the building department paying administration for use of that building. So technically, now that they're using the community services building, that revenue comes out of administration and goes to them.
Say that again, Liam. Is that a roundabout way saying that there is money coming out of the building department back to the library budget?
So right now, money's coming out of the building department and going into administration.
Right.
Because that's where they were located.
Sure.
But now that they've been relocated to the community services building and then the money could flow to that facility.
So is that money showing up in this budget or no?
It's not showing, not in capital, no. That'd be an operating item.
Yeah, of course. Right. Okay. All right. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Dave?
I think that's only fair.
Let's just make sure we're understanding that how we're slicing that onion. If you're going to take money,
my eyes.
If you're going to take money from building department that is going to administration, somebody's got to pay for that slack in administration. So it's what we may want to do is look at changing the budget going forward in 2021 and allocating floor space use and those heating costs and all that sort of, depreciation of building, and put that on the building department, funding to the library for whatever foreseeable future that they're going to be there, which is a whole other consideration as well. But there's still money. If we're going to take it out of the municipal office, it's got to come from somewhere. So I caution to go back and fix something, because you may create something, but we can definitely fix it for 2021.
Well, and I don't want to be too hard on the building department because they'll need fuel for that drone. I know. So that's just putting that out there. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the library?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To Brian's point, it is an operational question. I posed it at the last meeting, and look forward to having the discussion. I know the board had some questions about, not being able, can't really rent out the mill room right now, but I don't understand Dave's comment that if you take it out of administration, it's just moving the rent that they would normally be allocating to the administration office to the library office. I'm not sure what you meant, Dave, about being careful of where you're taking money from. It's, the building department basically paying rent to use the quiet study space and the mill space in the library versus the space that they would be allocating to the municipal office.
But that leaves the gap in the municipal office's budget, is what.
Yeah, and I would argue to Dave that the costs associated with COVID and the requirement to spread our employees out to keep them safe is the reason why the building department is not there.
Yeah, correct. But at the end of the day, there's the same amount of tax dollars in the if you want to talk about the half full or half empty. We're just talking about the same tax dollars moving from one department to another. I think if there's issues that, you know, like, again, the building space in the library was not going to be used for anything else during COVID. So we fixed a problem. Now I think we need to look at the financial impact going forward. And if there's some dollars to be moved, we can move those. But it's not like we're capturing money from somewhere. It's just going from one bucket to another.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you, Jessica and Liam. I think we can move on to the next one then.
Just playing with my internet browsers, and I'm finding that this presentation moves a little quicker on Firefox than it did on Chrome. So,
okay.
Bear with me. Okay. Yep, worked much faster. Okay, so I guess jump to administration. So in administration, which is page 6 of 109, I'll give everybody a chance to flip to their paper copy. So in administration, we have the placeholder of $5,000 for any computer replacements we might need, office furniture, and then, as I said, the administration building requirements of $1 million as a placeholder there, which is, I guess, subject of, I believe, Dave's report at the next council meeting.
Mm-hmm. Questions or comments?
Barbara has her hand up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Barbara, and then Martin.
So Liam, you have from contribution from unrestricted reserves, 530,000 for the administration building. Is that the modernization fund?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, Martin? You're muted.
My apologies. I was wondering what that 530 was too. But when it goes into the DC study, what is that 28,000, 29,000? What does that study actually entail? If somebody could remind me, because it's not a large chunk of money, but I was just wondering if Dave could elaborate on what is involved in that study.
Okay.
Just to remind me, if you could.
In the sorry, I missed some of those words. In the DC study?
Yeah, what does it entail for 28,700?
Well, and again, I'm on the screen. Can you just roll it up?
I realize there's not too much of it, but.
So maybe if I might add, we did a DC study in 2017, and we have to do one every 5 years. So, and this is in 2021. Okay, we have to approve a new one within 5 years. So we have it in 2021 because it's coming up to the 5-year mark by the time the DC study gets approved, as well as the community benefit charge, which changes the items that are allowed to be in the development charge study.
Okay.
So,
and I'm thinking in 2021, due to updating the asset management plan for growth and everything, that would make sense to lead into the DC study after we update levels of service in our asset management plan.
Okay.
And there's multiple buckets. I'm not sure how much detail you want me to go in, but you know, if we think that growth is going to require more books in the library, we're going to require a bigger garbage truck or more garbage trucks, or we're going to require sorry, that's, I better stay away from the garbage side because there's a bit of wrinkles there. But if we need a larger fire truck to hold more water to go to fires, or more people in the truck, any costs related to increasing capacity to take care of growth, not funding to support past use, but future use and growth in water, another well, wastewater expansion, which any wastewater expansion would be totally on development, and water wells of the future, water towers, and so on. Studies related to a new official plan or a zoning renewal. Those kind of studies that we require are all costed partly to growth we would put in the DC study.
Okay,
Related
no,
to
that's
bridges that need to be widened because of higher traffic volumes of caused by development. It's
okay.
all,
So
it's not within the development, it's all services outside the development that are impacted by growth.
okay, no, that's what I wondered about. You know, as you said, there's a lot of buckets, so it's pretty holistic. Is there a community, that other part of the DC, the community fund? Is there a separate study down the pipe for that then? Or is that involved in the DC study, the community benefit fund?
So I'm not sure I'm understanding the community benefit fund. Like if you're talking about royalties from solar and so on, that's a totally different beast. Or
Yeah.
the eco park. Community improvement plans is a different thing again. Those
No,
are monies that we
Sorry,
set
Doug, but
aside
what
and
it's referring to is that new community benefit charge. There are certain
Yeah.
items that are recoverable through DC right
Oh,
now. And
correct,
for
correct.
like, and DC is going to become for hard services only, and the soft services are going to be going to this community benefit charge.
That's the one I meant.
Yeah.
My apologies, I had the wrong term. But yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
So in the budget right now, we have the DC study, but in reality, it's DC/CBB study.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think we're to get into that, what you're referring to get into that community piece, you'd need a consultant in our next development charge study to address those kind of issues.
Yeah.
And
Because
identify
that would
what
involve,
projects might be.
that would affect
Oh, yeah.
library and parkland, wouldn't it? So, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Or anything.
Or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this?
Barbara,
Okay, Barbara?
thank you. I'd like to go back to the administration building. Last meeting, we had a brainstorm a bit about maybe relocating council and allowing the council chambers to be converted to administration. Would that option reduce the $1 million outlay? I mean, granted, we might have to do some reconfiguring in another facility for council to have their meetings, but I mean, was that sorry, let me rephrase it. Was that $1 million set aside for a brand new administration building, or are you anticipating the renovations to cost $1 million?
Okay, so next meeting, I've got a report coming on all those kind of facility things, but remember, this has been a placeholder that's now come forward over
Understood.
the years. There's no way that the renovations would cost $1 million. Plus, we think some of the renovations can be funded by grants and maybe, you know, this modernization funding. This could be pulled out if council wants to pull it out, or it could stay there and shove it back in a few years for future consideration.
So we may actually be able to, with getting a bit creative with where council hangs their hat and other, you know, juggling of space, we may be able to bring that number down considerably.
Well, yes, or push it into the future. I think we need to have
For
a
something
hard,
else, sure.
yeah, we need to have a hard discussion as to whether the investments we're maybe making or considering that have been put on the table are short-term investments or long-term investments as well. Because, you know, I think we have to consider those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments?
I would have a comment, John.
Sure.
And it's in regards to the admin building suggestion as well. And I tend to agree with Councillor DeBreen that that number, that placeholder could come out of there entirely. I think we need to put our creative hats on, as Barb has suggested. And we have, I think, a lot of unused or underutilized space that is available across the township that could be better utilized, and pull that entire project out of there. I don't think there's any need for $1 million expense for administration at this time.
Okay. Brian or Martin?
Yeah, with the $1 million and what Dave said about short term and long term, right now because of this COVID things, everything's short term. So I hate saying it, we could be doing these visual meetings into the next summer, the way the numbers are going. God help me, God help us if it does go that way, but it's a possibility. So if Dave said there's ways to renovate and not use $1 million or go for grants, then I think maybe that's what we should look at there, and at the next meeting really take a good look at that figure and maybe drop it down to 100,000 or 200,000 or something, but just keep it in there for the future. It is a placeholder, I guess, but I tend to agree with Brian and Deputy Mayor Milne and Councillor DeBreen that because of the times we're in, should it really be there? So just a comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
Any other, Dave?
Follow-up?
And then Barb?
Yeah. And when I'm talking short term, I'm talking the next 2 or 3 years. Just so I think the real short term is we're likely going to be meeting till well into the spring virtually, just like we are today, but that's a whole other discussion. But as far as building spaces, I think we need to look out the next 2 or 3 years as short term, but also have consideration for 5, 10 years out. Is should we be starting some pot of collection of money for a future need? I mean, you can always reallocate, but it's hard to find these funds if we don't have them.
Okay. I'm not hearing any more questions or comments about.
I had a follow-up.
Oh, you did too. That's right, Barb. Sorry.
That's okay. Just to get back to that $1 million, don't get me wrong, like we're still going to, eventually we'll get back to in-person meetings, maybe. Maybe we like this, I don't know. But we do, to Dave's point, have to plan for when we do get back. And rather than, getting back to in-person meetings and having nowhere to meet, we have to plan for that. I'm just thinking that number could even be half and still cover the construction or renovation requirements to take advantage of the underutilized space that Brian mentioned. I think we can get creative, and to Dave's point, yeah, we can earmark it for something else, but if we're looking for savings, there's 2.5%, 3%. If we were to just half that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Liam, we can move on.
All right, so next one in the, I guess we'll go down page by page here. Next one is, oh, I guess I spoke too soon. This one's just as slow. Public health. So at page 11 of 109. So right now it's fairly the standard $1,500 contribution to the Durham Community Health Compensation. and the Mount Forest Health Professional Recruitment Committee, as well as 25,000 to the Southeast Grey Community Health Center. And then we have a contribution to the medical clinic of $52,950.
Okay. Any questions or comments there? Go
I
ahead.
would, okay. In regards to the Mount Forest and Area Health Professional Recruit, it's a doc recruitment committee, and I sit on that committee in Mount Forest. Someone mentioned to me the other day that if you call Health Force Ontario, I think it is, and ask for a if there's any doctors that are taking on patients in the Mount Forest and area, you're told that it's a 5-year wait. With the extra build and so on that is taking place at the Mount Forest Hospital currently, and they're creating that campus of care there with the health clinic and so on. I'd like to see that $1,500 bumped up a little bit, and it's the same for Durham. That is the foundation, and they are the ones that do the doc recruitment there. I think $1,500 is a little light, given the urgency that we need new health professionals to come to our communities. I don't know what the number is, but I can tell you that Wellington North contributes well over $10,000 to that same doctor recruitment committee. Wellington North has a bigger population in that catchment area for sure, but certainly the folks in the southwest corner rather of Southgate rely on the Mount Forest docs to provide healthcare there. So I would make a pitch that we move that number up some. I guess for discussion purposes, I'd say we'd double it to 3,000 to both of the two hospitals. I don't know what others think of that.
Okay. What any comments about that?
Yeah, Jason here. I would tend to agree with Brian. It seems a little low for the amount of service that is provided in that part of the township by that hospital.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jason.
John?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
I think it's kind of low too, mainly from Brian's point, where we service. Personal anecdote, family member probably used 3 hospitals around here, and she was quite happy that they were all there. So to have these foundations funded a bit more, I don't think it's a bad thing. The population is aging, despite the newer people coming up from the city and Dundalk. So, we have Durham, we have Mount Forest, we have Markdale. I don't think it would hurt putting a little bit more money into the foundations there. So.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Barbara?
Yep.
I'm not unsupportive of that. I'd like to see some, it just seems that as soon as they get a doctor, there's still a 5-year wait list. And if they're even allowing you to go on a wait list, I'm supportive of increasing that. Dave, the $25,000 for Southeast Grey Community Health Center, doesn't that come out of the Eco Park Fund? Could we not take money out of the solar fund to support the west side?
Yes, you could. Yeah.
So it would actually not hit it's all in the same bucket of money, but
Correct.
it's not taxation if it's coming out of that solar fund.
I think a good exercise might be is maybe the both foundations or both doctor recruitment boards should assess what percentage of that budget we should be allocated. I'm sure Minto contributes to Mount Forest, and West Gray and others likely, and Gray Highlands maybe supports Durham. But anyway, we should have some, I think, rather than just pull a number out of the sky, and I think we likely should contribute more, but what percentage are we served in that community?
Right. And they should have those statistics, would they not, Brian? As to the number of Southgate residents served, even though their address is Mount Forest sometimes, or, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely, they have that statistic. And it may surprise some people on this call that there are a significant number of residents from the east end of the township that attend Mount Forest Hospital, and Durham for that matter as well. So
Yep.
it's, I'm hesitant to frame it as an east-west thing. I think it's more of a Southgate community thing. We need to support all of our health providers at a, you know, comparable level, relatively comparable level. So I will endeavor to get those numbers for Dave and see what their thoughts are. Thank you.
Okay. Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that people forget too when you talk about until very recently with doctors and hospitals, even the far west end being, or the east end being the village of Dundalk, we're pretty well in between Markdale, Mount Forest, Durham, Orangeville. Like, people from here are going every direction. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I'd like to hear those numbers. Any other questions about some of this? Okay, we can move on to the next one.
Okay, so next is council.
Okay.
Got it to 0.
Zero members or 0?
Okay, maybe not.
Okay.
John, if I could add, it's
Yeah.
Lindsay.
Go ahead.
So I put this in there to fix the council chambers as it currently is. That was hopeful that we would possibly be back to meeting in person in 2021. That's likely not going to happen unless it's towards the very end. And who knows where, if we'll even be in the Hopeville administration office for council. So like Brian said, this could likely be removed for this year or for 2021.
Okay. Barb?
So I think when we spoke before, the projection technology or improved audio, whatever was going to be in the works, would come out of the modernization fund. Or is there any option to make that system portable so that regardless of where council is meeting, let's say we're having a public meeting in Dundalk as like an open house information session in Dundalk, when we get back to in-person meetings, of course, versus, you know, we're meeting at the Optimus Hall versus where we actually hold our regular council meetings. It would be worth looking into having a system that was portable.
Yes, for sure it would be. I mean, a few of the systems I've looked at just from other municipalities, it is stationary to their council chambers. But given what's happened this year, then yeah, that's a good option to look at if we could be moving around in the future.
It might be a little bit more expensive because it's not hardwired, and it, you know, you pay for what you get. But since we have that COVID grant and modernization fund, I know that Dave has it earmarked for an administration building, but I don't know. I think we need to be flexible. Mm-hmm. It's something to look at anyway, and maybe it's something that could be considered. I'm not saying we have to.
Yep.
Yep.
Any other? Okay, Michael.
Yeah, the only thing I have with this is if it's money that we can allocate for a fund that's, you know, it's not coming to the tax dollars at the end of it. Like if we're putting in and getting a grant for some of these things, I think that we need to make sure that we're still getting that money. But if it's nothing that we can grant and it's all coming out of taxation, then I think, yeah, we need to shelf these items. But if we're getting some grant money, I think we should be trying to, you know, keep going with some of these projects. And as you said, like, so we keep going. So we don't want to fall behind either at the end of this, that, you know, come 2022, all this money has to be spent. So I think we need to make sure we're leaving down the road that we're all going to be in good shape.
Yeah, it'll be a real balancing act. You're right. Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, John.
Okay, and then Brian?
Yeah, I tend to agree with this conversation here. You know, should it really be there right now? Probably not, but we can still look through grants and maybe some other things the provincial government's coming down for COVID to look into projections and computers that we can move around. For me personally, I think the technology is there. If we can buy something that's better, when I'm out on a meeting like a council meeting, I download it on my iPad and I use my phone. Where would we be if we didn't have the technology of the day? So I'm sure there's a lot of technology we can look into buying, but not necessarily, as it's been bandied around, out of taxpayers' money. There could be grants for it. So if it saves 0.05 on the budget this year by not having it in there, or whatever that number is, then, you know, it's something to look at, to take out.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Thank you, John. I guess my comment would revolve around, and I guess to be honest, I've never been a big fan of this recording of council. And I know there's all that openness and transparency thing, but you need to look no further than the participant list at today's meeting. There is not one member of the public that is watching. Where are they? If everybody's so interested in what we're doing, where are they? And why aren't they talking to us? So, you know, to spend $20,000 to make sure that a handful of people can see this meeting 6 months from now doesn't make any sense to me at all. So, you know, I mean, I'm not going to argue any more about it, but I just think we need to be cognizant of that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other comments on this?
Jason here.
Yep, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Brian. Like, people don't show up anyway, but I also agree with Barb as to having a portable system. You know, if we're going to stay in these meetings this way because of COVID, you know, if we have an issue that's in the east or western end of the township, and we do start meeting back, I should say, no, after COVID, I meant to say, sorry. You know, it's a big issue out there. Maybe we can have the council meeting in Holstein, or you know, if it's an issue in Dundalk, you know, maybe you would get a few more people out. But as far as spending it on the council chambers right now, yeah, I agree. We should just put it on hold.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the next bit.
Which is planning. Is Clint on the call? Okay.
Okay, any questions or comments on planning?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Brian.
How much is currently in the planning reserves in terms of dollars?
I can look that up. Just bear with Me.
The reason I ask is because I see we're transferring or proposing to transfer $10,000 a year to reserves. I'm just wondering how that balances out with the expenses going forward. I don't want to see us with a big reserve and planning, you know, thinking Clint's going to buy a new pickup or something.
Okay.
Or
so
wood chip.
Or a wood chipper. Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of 2019, the balance of the planning zoning reserve was 85,000, which is what you see coming out in 2021. But then
Right.
there's another 10,000 going into that in 2020. The OMB reserve has 47,696 in it.
Okay.
And the strategic plan has 28,123.83.
So I guess my question to Clint would be, how much wiggle room is there, Clint? Like, is there an opportunity to move that contribution of 10,000 a year down or up, or what do you think?
Well, there's always something new on the horizon. I think we're close to not needing a reserve for the OMB. I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of contributions. I was thinking about once we get to around 50,000, we sort of cap that one going forward and just leave it there in the event that there is an OMB case that requires significant legal and time and that sort of thing. So that was sort of my thinking. As far as the others, as we just heard, the zoning one is going to basically be depleted with the if we choose to go that route with a consultant to do the zoning bylaw. So we would need to continue that again in the future if that's the case. And the OP one, typically it's about 50 or 60,000 for an official plan amendment. That's just a rough estimate. We haven't got any quotes or anything, but if you're asking, that would be a typical number. So I'm not sure we're there yet. We're trying to do some of that stuff in-house, and hopefully we can next year. But I'm put it this way: there's not enough in there to do all of the projects that we would hope to do. If we were hoping to help along with some of the official plan and the zoning is going to be done and taken care of, and then that only needs to be done every 10 years or so. So we're good there. But as I said, I was hoping that in the next couple of years, we'd be able to stop the transfer of the reserves to the OMB. That would be my recommendation in the future once that reaches a 50,000.
I guess I would think with the quality of planning decisions in Southgate, there'd be no need for an OMB reserve. But anyway, never know. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that was one of your longer answers that time, Clint, compared to the no, or that's it.
I don't have a report to back me up.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you could generate one though.
You could plan to do it. Okay, we can move on to the next if there's no more questions there.
So the next one would be building, which have the requirements in 2021. In the current presentation, which I suppose location might change that.
Yeah. Okay, Barb?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I noticed that the drone was still under 2020. I don't think we went ahead with that. Should that not move into 2021 if it's still being proposed, or maybe I missed something? Was it purchased?
I'm not sure if Bev is listening in, but I believe he was in the midst of ordering the drone.
Oh, okay.
I have not purchased one yet.
There he is.
I have been in discussion with our fire chief over some requirements that he'd like, which may have me come back to council with another, seeking more or another approval. Sorry, Brian, one more kick at the cat for you.
Well, you were almost going to say it there. Seeking more money. Yeah, I think likely.
Follow up.
Yep, go ahead.
So to Bev or to Liam or whomever, if we're looking at making this available to the fire department, or if the fire department would benefit from this, would there be cost sharing outside of, or you know, like where we charge back to other departments? Because right now it's in building, and building isn't a taxation. Growth pays for growth, the non-taxable item.
Okay, go ahead, Liam.
Anybody?
So I guess my comment on that is the $10,000 projected was to buy a drone for the building department's needs. I think Bev has commented how if we wanted it to have infrared camera to meet the fire department's needs, then it would, we would have to buy a more expensive drone. And I would say that department probably should fund the additional capital cost. I don't think on an operational basis, it's worthwhile charging out use of the drone, but I guess that's up for discussion, just for the dollar value compared to the effort and the benefit that would come with that.
Okay.
Follow up.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead, Beth first, and then Barb.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Barb.
In discussion with the fire chief, we're looking at buying what we call a FLIR, an infrared for heating. The building department can use that as well. Maybe not as requirement as the fire department has, but we definitely can use it to our advantage in showing people where they are not succeeding on energy efficiency, which is becoming more and more code related, as we maybe you're not aware of, but by the year 2030, we're supposed to be building net zero buildings. In other words, it costs them absolutely nothing to heat, which I'm not sure how, but that's what we're saying. So we're going to have to educate the public greatly, and I think this would be a benefit to us.
So my follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Was I'm supportive of the drone. I can see there being benefit across the municipality to public works for, checking out municipal drains and culverts. If we get a water tower and doing those annual inspections of the water tower, and I know that you can rent them out, hire somebody to man them. Yeah, I just see there being cross-departmental benefits. So we'll see what comes back in the next kick of the can.
Okay. Any other? Go ahead, Michael.
Sometimes I think that we forget to realize that there is only one taxpayer at the end of this. No matter what department uses it, was still bought by the taxpayers' money. So if the roads are using it or the fire department's using it, it's still the taxpayer that paid for it. So really, to bill the fire department for using it this day and the road department, that's just internal. It doesn't really change it in any which way.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I think we can drone on to the next. They're getting bad, so we're gonna have to. Yeah.
You need to work on that, John.
No, I think I need to give up.
Okay, so I think
Is there a need for a recess, Mr. Chair, or?
Sure. Why don't we just take a quick recess though? We're at the 12 o'clock kind of cutoff like last time, aren't we? Or are we can keep going after that?
No, as long as we move a motion to go past noon, we can go ahead, but we
Oh,
might as
okay.
well move it now and then go for a recess.
Okay.
I would move it.
Barb will move it and we'll second it.
I will, John. Jason.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Anyone opposed to it? Okay, that's passed. And so then let's take a whole 10 minutes for a break. So,
Well, let's not go crazy.
no, we'll see you back here at 25 after. Well, I've got 25 after. Are you there, Lindsay?
Yes, I'll maybe just do a quick roll call of the members so I know.
Okay.
So Mayor Woodbury, you're here. Deputy Mayor Milne? Must not quite be back yet. Oh,
Yep.
there he is. Councillor Shipston?
Present.
Councillor Dobreen is here. Councillor Rice?
Yep, I'm here.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes, I'm here.
And Councillor Frew, I can see you. So we're good, John.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, Liam, we can move on.
So the next area is industrial land. Is Dave back? If not, we can move on to the, oh, there he is.
Oh, he is. Are there any questions about the industrial land? Brian.
Thank you, sir. I note in the, well, every year going forward, and indeed this year as well, we did, 25,000 out of taxation into the industrial land. I guess it's my opinion that the industrial land should be self-sustaining. We certainly try to price the land so that, you know, the sale of the lots or the land will cover the cost to service that land and all the rest of it. But I see we are going to put, or have been putting, and will be putting, or being proposed to be putting 25,000 a year into industrial land. Dave, can you help me a little bit there? Why is that needed? It seems a relatively small number compared to the numbers that we're talking about in the industrial park, given the land value and all the rest of it. Could we not pull that out of there and make that part of their self-sustaining budget?
Yeah, I agree that we definitely could do that. I think we need to continue on with the rationale from here going forward that the industrial park land sale should pay for future development of the roadway, the servicing, and so on. And I think based on the activity I've seen to gobble up this industrial land, I think we need to assess increasing the cost of future land per acre and so on. But I would recommend removing it and not hitting the taxpayer with that cost.
Okay.
Golly, that was pretty easy. What else can we do?
Not push our luck.
Yeah.
Take $25,000 and buy a wood chipper.
Okay.
If you were to propose buying a good used wood chipper, maybe, but no.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question here, John.
Yep.
Martin.
Go
With that being said, with the acreage paying for the development and the industrial part, what is the going rate for an acre there now? Just to, is it gone up? Is it gone down? Market value, all that stuff?
No, we've always had the eco park land established at $35,000 an acre, unless
Okay.
it was land that was going to take a lot of fill to develop, and there has been a few of those. Prime land, we've stuck at $35,000 an acre.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Can move on to the next one then.
Economic development.
Okay. Any questions about the economic development? Barbara?
Thank you, through the chair. I noticed that we have the downtown improvements being 40,000, nothing under facade improvements. But is that all not captured in the community improvement plan? And is that what that $40,000 is that what the recommendation is I'm not sure what the downtown improvement $40,000 is supposed to represent, or if it's just it's supposed to be for the community improvement plan?
Okay. Liam?
That would be a question for the economic development officer, which I guess is Dave right now.
Dave, okay.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So downtown improvement is any of that streetscape kind of stuff. Now, I believe the 30,000 in reserve, coming from reserves would be the red funding. I'd have to confirm that, but I believe that's what that is.
No, the 10. We've been putting $10,000 a year into a reserve in order to do downtown improvements. So
okay,
we're in tax $10,000 a year. So this year we're spending 40. We're only in tax of 10, and next year we'll start rebuilding that reserve.
Okay. So then there's the red funding on top of that we would access as well. Now, facade improvement it was not to my knowledge that. Did we stop that contribution last year, Liam?
No,
Because
there's
there's nothing in
still a contribution.
2021.
So if I may, there's still a contribution of $2,000 to reserves.
Yeah, I
for
see
facade.
it.
But with the new community improvement plan, which captures facade improvements, I don't see anywhere other than downtown improvements where we're contributing anything. And are we going to plan for a contribution to the community improvement plan? And I guess my next question is what are we spending $40,000 on? What's the
project?
You
roll back? Okay. I believe that was some to go to the parking lot project, was it not?
I'm not sure what it was. It was just Glenn was the one, I believe, that knew what that 40,000 was.
Yeah, I believe that was put in there for the parking lot.
But don't we have that covered under another line?
Well, there's some in Public Works and some here.
Jim has his hand up there, I see.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, just was wondering if, refreshing there, that did we not move that fund over for streetlights downtown and then the decorations?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but I think this is a different kettle. That you're talking about was we moved it over because we had to spend it. It had to be through that AMO downtown revitalization. And we had hoped to put that money in there, but then that's what happened. We had to spend it on streetlights on Main Street. So then now we have the 40 in here for parking lot.
Okay, I think we could take a second look at this because I think yes, you're right. We already did the streetlights and we pulled the $40,000 to do it. That would be the downtown revitalization fund. We were going to do it in the parking lot and then we had to use it right away. So what I'm asking is what are we spending $40,000 on in 2021 when we already have the parking lot budgeted under Public Works, under roads?
We'll have to go back and take a look at making sure we're covering all those costs because I know this was to help with that, but we'll have to reassess that there isn't some duplication here.
Okay, that'd be great because I know that there was talk about signage and waypoint signage and I don't see that. Certainly things with some juggling around, maybe this was earmarked and we no longer need it. Maybe we need it for something else. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
John?
Yep.
Martin here.
Okay, go ahead.
in the upcoming community improvement plan, there's money supposed to be coming down the pipe to fund these, the 5,000 limit to give out as a grant to business owners in downtown or wherever in the township. Where would that money be coming from? Could this money be used there?
Well,
With those
it could
grants?
be, but we have money coming from the county, and I'm not just sure
Oh, okay.
if there's money coming from the county to do that they're supporting, but definitely in the future, we're going to have to take a look at those kind of funding models and take a look and assess where that money's coming from. And we'll have to create a reserve for that.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. Councillor DeGreen mentioned it about maybe signs, way signs coming up. I did notice looking back in Public Works, Jim, that there was a line for signs that was around 12,000. Was that specifically just the traffic signs, or were there way signs in that also?
Go ahead,
Jim.
No, those are for our street regulatory signs. That's not for those wayward signs.
Okay, thank you. Just wondered.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this?
It's Jason, John.
Go ahead, Jason.
So I'm not real sure, Dave, maybe I missed it here. What are we spending the money on? What, to Barb's question? And is this just downtown Dundalk, or is this downtown Holstein, Swinton Park? What is it?
No, it is downtown Dundalk, and it was allocated to, in my mind, to look after parking lot development around the backside of on the east side of Proton Street, behind the credit union and the new drugstore, and then come around to the CIBC and do drainage and lighting back in there. And the reason that you can see it, Liam's got a note that's it's forwarded from 2020, and that was planned to be done in 2020.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then, Liam, I think we can move on.
All right. Next will be fire.
Okay. Just before we go to questions, you did a great job with arranging the fire department stuff for the funeral, Derek, so thank you. Any questions or comments on the budget?
I have a question, John.
Okay.
Derek, I noticed that for the rescue pumper tanker, and I try to remember now, did you say that we would be able to get that truck in the next fiscal year, like in the next calendar year 21, or would it be, if we ordered it now, which I think we already have kind of, is it going to arrive in 22?
So we have the tender out for release right now. We won't get the truck in until 2022.
22, okay. So I guess my first question would be regarding the truck. Why, like, you're financing most of it, so why would you put $56,550 on this year's taxes? Why not finance all of it, excluding the DC money that you're using? What was the rationale for that?
So maybe I'll step in there. So the financing, it was to spread out the taxation impact over so that it was reasonable each year. Yep. If we finance the whole thing, then the debt payment in next year would be a significant hit to the taxation base.
Well, 56,000 over 10 years isn't going to change the financing number appreciably per year, is it?
Well, if 56,000 comes out of here, then that just shifts it to 56,000 after recover in future years.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, well that's fine. I was just curious to know why put that on there. My other
And so
concern
now I
is,
have the department going at 15% a year, given all their future capital needs.
well, and that leads me into my next question. If you look, in the next 10 years, there's a significant upgrading of the various apparatus for the fire department, and most of it is being financed, and it's expensive equipment. I don't need to tell anybody on this call that. So if you look at Melanchthon's contribution, it's $7,000 a year for capital. That doesn't even cover the interest payment on one piece of equipment for the next number of years. What are the metrics that we use to determine what our neighboring municipalities are going to pay us for capital? I know they, excuse me, I know they contribute per call or for operational expenses, but as we all know, it costs money to put that machine there for the use. So in my mind, Melanchthon's getting off fairly lightly here, looking at it compared to what we pay Mount Forest or Durham for operations. So, or for capital rather, why not lick them a little bit more for some more money?
Actually, Derek's working on that, and I'll let you take that, Derek.
So the capital and operation is an old fire board item, is how they used to do it that way. With Mount Forest, what we chose to do is just pay them a one lump sum for each year, and they can allocate the money to capital or operation, whatever council sees fit. And that's sort of what we're going to be doing with Melanchthon. The new agreement will be coming to council in one of the next couple council meetings, where we've increased the price, and it will be a lump sum where council can decide, as well as myself, on how much we're going to set aside for into a reserve for capital purchases.
So in the grand scheme, Melanchthon will be contributing more for capital or in general. Is that a fair statement?
Yep, our fees to them are going to increase for sure.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
And I would just real quickly concur with the mayor's sentiments about Sunday's funeral. You did a great job, Derek. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I think as well, there was something else you wanted to bring up in relation to the capital, Derek?
Yeah, we discussed it at the fire advisory committee about possibly purchasing not a brand spanking new, but maybe a demo version for an FPO vehicle, just in case the FPO has to go one way, I have to go the other way, as well as for operational uses, because of we have 2 trailers that we have to float to some calls, and currently we're using a personal vehicle sometimes to float that trailer, which isn't ideal. But we're also going to look at the end of life cycle for roads department and see if there's any vehicles that would sort of suit our needs with 4-wheel drive. So we'll still look into that.
Okay. Okay, so are there any other questions or comments for the fire department for the capital? All right, thank you, Derek. We can move on then, Liam.
And next is recreation.
Okay, any questions or comments about recreation?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, John. It has to regards, and again, it comes down to this placeholder thing. How realistic is this multi-purpose community facility in this year's or next year's budget?
So that can be pushed off into the future. Really, it's just been a placeholder over time that we are collecting DCs on. And Liam, I think, has in there approximately the DCs about 225,000. So again, just a placeholder that was established by a development charge that was initiated, I believe, a couple council terms ago.
So if I might, Mr. Mayor, just to follow up to that, it shows $1.5 million from grants towards that project. Are those grants in the bank, or where are those grants potentially coming from?
Well, that was an anticipated grant for the ICIP that we didn't apply for.
Right.
It would be again a future plan to apply for a grant that would justify that investment to support the whole project.
So, yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Barbara?
To that point, I think this was, if we got the grant from ICIP, this would be the renovation of the Old Town Hall, which we didn't get advanced past the provincial level, right, Dave?
No, that's not. The Old Town Hall is the next line down that you see as zeros because we didn't get that.
Okay, so this has, so that $1,500 and the $500,000 donation was something separate. That was your multi-use facility arena gathering space.
Correct.
Okay.
And it was decided to go to the Old Town Hall.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
So,
Michael here.
Okay, go ahead.
Michael and then Brian?
So that donation of 500,000 is sitting in the bank waiting for something?
Again, that was anticipation of a grant from a funder. A developer was looking to support a project like that in the future.
Okay, Brian?
So I guess to that point, Dave, and to Liam's comment there, that the Old Town Hall was not the beneficiary of the OSIP grant. So neither has the multipurpose community facility. So why does it remain in the budget for this year? I mean, it's going to be taken out, but why would it be put in the draft budget if there's no funding there for it? Why not push it off 2 or 3 years?
And that's why we're bringing it forward to, it's here. We need to make those decisions. And yes, staff is recommending we push it off, but we shouldn't be deciding whether we push it off 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, 3 years. I think that needs to be a discussion with council. Let's make those decisions. Or is it in there at all?
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just with that,
yep.
Yeah, it's not in there, but we probably should have some consideration somewhere for a project ready something. Whenever COVID's going to be done here, the ICF fund wasn't given out anywhere. We could find that some grants come short terms again. And right now, like, I'm not too sure what we've got project ready. So if it's the administration office, whatever, but we should be getting some plans in place or whatever, that if these short-term grants come, we can apply for them and have a project ready. So if we take everything off the books, we don't have anything project ready that we can apply for the short-term grants that happen to come out now and again. So, you know, I'm not saying it needs to be a multi-use facility because we don't have the money for that, but just keep in mind, we should be keeping some sort of project ready that we can apply for grants.
Go ahead, Brian.
So if that's the case, and I don't disagree with you, Kevin, why wouldn't we budget, I don't know, pick a number, $5,000, $10,000 to do the design work so that you have a project, like you said, shovel ready to go if any grant program comes along and we're the beneficiaries of that grant program. To continue on with saying, well, we got a $3 million project on the books, that's not project ready or shovel ready. Why don't we budget, like I said, a number to get a project that is shovel ready? But maybe that's in your report next week, Dave, or this week rather, or this week, next week. Dave.
Some week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next week.
Okay.
And that's a good point. Although I think the way we did the library, we did the budgeting, we had some numbers of a rough nature there. That shows that there's some readiness. I would caution, I think a better way to go is do a design build and not spend money on designs, because we may design something that, because I would suggest this multi-use, push it out in 3 or 4 years for the next council to consider, but we could pull it back if we found a sugar daddy grant that would able to fund such a project. Then we could go to a design build type project based on those discussions with council and with the community of the day, you know. But I would even caution just to put some paper, to put it on a shelf of a design might not even be a wise investment.
But my point is to just show that you've got a line item in your budget, that doesn't make anything shovel ready. Does it?
Shovel ready doesn't mean just design, it means having property available. And we have property available. I mean, we can work with partners or we can work with developers. We have eco park land that we could put something on, whatever.
Okay. Barbara?
We could do a design if that's what you wish, but I think it might be tying you down to something that we're not exactly what we want.
I'll await your report.
Okay, Barbara?
So one thing about having a design or a concept that we can share as being, you know, this is kind of what we're working on, and getting input from people, maybe this community improvement committee or modernization committee, whatever it is, it gets people a little bit more excited about something that, oh, okay, now I get what you're talking about. But being project ready and having a number in the book, why not take $500,000 and put it in a reserve for the next 3 or 4 years while we're creating that concept, while we're waiting for the ideal grant to, you know, we can, like Kevin says, pull a project off the shelf. Hey, this is a fit for this grant. I understand that concept. We're not going to be doing a multi-use facility in 2021, so that $3 million could be a much smaller number and put it in a reserve for a future facility, whether it's multi-use, whether it's the arena in 2029, whether it's a new administration building. I don't know what it would be. That would be at the next council's discretion, but that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, talking about the donations column, whomever that developer is he still interested, or corporation still interested in that amount, or is that gone by the wayside?
We haven't had that conversation since we decided to go to not apply for the ICIP.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
I have another question, John.
Okay.
The zero turn, the Toro zero turn. How much grass is the rec department cutting? And why aren't we considering putting that with our contract with the current grass cutter that we hire?
So what we're cutting now is basically everything Hopeville east. It's all our sports fields, basically. So the reason we went that route was to give our programmer those extra 15, 20 hours a week to create that full-time position for him. And so we kind of made that programmer's job a little more attractive to keep Ethan. The other reason we cut that sports field is because every time we've had a contract, nobody's maintained our sports fields to the level of what the users are expecting. So it's just, we found there's less complaints, less problems, and it gives Ethan those 15 to 20 hours a week to keep him full time.
10-4.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Liam, we can move on.
Okay, already did library. All right, so I believe we've covered everybody's sections, I think.
Well,
so I have a question, just a general question, John, if I might.
You might.
Thank you. So Liam, I'm just wondering how much debt are we issuing or proposing to issue in 2021 overall of our budget? That number is probably in this pile of paper I have here, but I don't have it off the top of my.
See if it. Okay, so that wasn't put into the presentation and the summary form, so let me just pull that up.
Okay, please.
I think this should show it. Maybe. So in the 2021 budget, the debt of $2,957,820.
Sorry, say that again. 2 million.
$2,957,820.
Okay.
I believe some of that would be for the building, like that facility that we just said is being pushed out of 2021.
Right.
Barb?
So of that 3 million, there was 750,000 in the multi-use facility proposed to take on as debt. There was some for, I'm not sure, the administration building. Was there, Liam? We had $1 million for administration.
Yeah, this chart shows it better. So of the 2 million, 2.9, 430,000 was administration, 553 was fire, 775 was recreation, and 1.2 was roads.
Right. So if we're pushing out the multi-use facility, that'll push out the requirement to take on 775,000 in debt for that. And
so
it's
just
possible.
summary, it sounds like for the administration, that's probably not happening to that magnitude. So that 430,000 debt wouldn't be required in 2021. For fire, the truck isn't being delivered until 2022 now. So fire won't be need that 553. And recreation, we just said we're pushing that out, so that 775 goes away. And then that leaves the roads debt of 1.2.
Thanks. Good question.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Question I have, John, is how many full-time equivalents, new full-time equivalents, are in this budget? Staffing.
And we haven't determined the operating budget yet. So this is just the capital and special projects at this point.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none.
Michael here.
Okay, Michael, go ahead.
Just kind of wondering, will we get another draft copy of the budget as where it stands of the capital before, so we can see where we're at? I know with our thing, we're going into operation next, but we need to see where we're standing now taxation wise at the end of what we've discussed so far, right? Before we go on. That's all. I'm just kind of wondering if we're going to see what's taken out and where the numbers lie before we get into operational.
Dave, you want to handle?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll take today's discussions and adjust the budget accordingly. Work with the mayor with if we have any questions or concerns, but I think we have enough direction today to adjust that budget. But I think I'll turn it back, council. I think we've had some frank discussions about different things, and I think that's great. But what are your tax increase goals for 2021? And maybe we need to dig a little deeper and adjust it based on, you know, COVID or whatever. But what's your feeling? I mean, do we need to be at 0? Do we need to be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Or what's council's feeling? Because I think that's important to establish as well.
Okay.
Michael here.
Go ahead, Michael, and then Barbara.
I would like to see us have projects ready like we're talking about, that when some money comes out and everybody wants to get back to work and the government's throwing stuff out, we need to be ready to jump on some of those opportunities. But at the same token, we're not sure how long this is going to be. So if we can give our residents a 0% increase this year, hold everything steady, not spending more than we have to, I think that's what we need to do for our jobs right now, just looking forward. But we have to be ready to go when the green light is switched and we got projects ready to go and not fall behind on the other token.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Barb, you're next, and then whoever.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. To Liam, I think we're looking in order to give you some and staff some direction as to an overall percentage. I agree with Dave. You know, why let you come back with a number and then say, whoa, you know, hey, cost of living, I think we were anticipating that to be about 1.5%. And so go ahead, Liam. Got his hand up.
Just so you know, I've done a report for the next council meeting, and the cost of living is 0.7%.
0.7?
Yes.
Okay. So even to hold a tax increase at 0%, we'd be ripping into reserves significantly, and I don't believe in not recognizing the efforts of staff with a minimum of a COLA increase. And we do also have to recognize their contribution and their performance throughout the year. So I can hear what Michael is saying and you know, keeping it at a 0% increase, but keeping it artificially low has found us in a situation the following, or in a few months, and saying, oh, the boiler went, or the roof fell off, or so those reserves are there for a reason. I am supportive of using some reserves to keep it low given our current situation, but I'm not sure how we can keep it to a 0% if we want to make sure that our employees are receiving at a minimum cost of living increase. So personally, I'm looking at what others are doing and what might be reasonable given, we made some changes to the capital, like 1.5, keep it under 2 for sure. But we also have to recognize that some projects have to happen.
Okay, thank you. Brian and then Martin.
I guess my question to Liam, before I throw a number out, is what is our assessment growth likely to be? Because I would think it should be significant, and that would bring us more tax dollars to buffer any increase we might propose.
So the actual assessment growth is not available for another couple of weeks, but I'm just thinking in my projections, if I open that up, I did provide council with the projected for 2021. I just need to find that file.
Sorry, Liam, I got a good memory, but it's not very long.
For some reason, I'm thinking that supplementals were around 150,000, but I find that file. So
150,000. So 150,000. That's what?
Which is less than we budgeted. We budgeted for like 300, and we came in at 150.
Right. I mean, I don't. If I could editorialize a little bit, Mr. Mayor, I guess I don't disagree with Michael or Jason. Jason has commented on this in the past as well, that we should be striving for 0%. But quite honestly, I don't think that's either reasonable or responsible. Our expenses are to continue with the same services and the same level of service. There's no way we can come in at 0. Our costs are going up, fuel, hydro, labor, everything else is going up, and that's no fault of ours necessarily. Those are just built-in costs that increase every year, it seems like. Insurance, as we all know, has gone stupid. So, I'd love to see something around 2.5 to 3%, but I don't know. And I guess my other question to Liam is, you're talking about the final blended rate, right? You're not talking about the local rate, correct?
I'm talking about the blended income tax rate, yes.
Right, and that's blended with education and accounting.
The dollar increase can't be 0 just due to our growth, but
exactly.
The levy increase is different.
Right, exactly. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm thinking, but I'm not going to argue extensively until I see the operational budget, but that's kind of where I'd love to see us end up. Thank you.
Okay, Martin.
Yeah, I was just going through that little packet we had at the very beginning in November, the capital special projects one, and it has some bullets here saying the financing strategy contained in the AMP should have an increase when everything was fine without COVID, 4.93 a year, never been implemented. Any increase in the capital levy were much lower. And then it went on the next bullet saying for 2021, the increase in the capital tax levy equates to 3.2 overall. So if we take that 3.2 minus what we talked about today, that figure will probably come out to what Deputy Mayor Milne has said, probably around 2, I don't know, 2.5. And going to 0, I tend to agree with Councillor DeBreen, and I've always said it, we need reserves. So we need some reserves. but to mention Deputy Mills, Mayor Mills' quote about being responsible and having a zero increase, it's not responsible for the councils coming down in years to come, I don't think, and for the people at large 5 years from now, because if we use up our reserves, wouldn't that mean we'd have to have a higher tax rate 5 years down the road to make sure we have money to keep these projects going? So maybe 2.5 would be a number to look at for capital. It depends on what it comes back with taking those big money items out. So blended rate, what would it be with the operating?
I might clarify, are we
3,
talking about the overall increase or just capital increase? I think Dave's question was overall increase.
I was talking overall myself.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if you take that 3.2 and you take out those things that we were talked about today, even with operations, I don't think a 2.5 or a 3 would be, I don't know. We still have to pay for the purchases.
Taxation, though, a lot of it was the level of debt and the amount we take out of DC reserves. I'm not sure any of the shifts we just did today changes the requirement of taxation this year.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
Jason here, John.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand what Brian's saying. He's saying maybe he's not responsible down the road, but I don't know. I just think with the assessment values and what's going on these days, I would like to see it at a zero increase. I just think it would, what Mike said before, it's the same taxpayer, and the federal government wants more, the provincial government wants more. Is there not 2 or 3% savings through every department where we could say to the people, look, we know you're in hard times. We're going to try to help you here. It's the same guys paying all the time. And to Barb's point, and this will maybe offend our employees, it's not meant to offend our employees. With the cost of living increase, I'm going to roughly say how many 50% of the people never get a cost of living increase. And maybe half of them people have lost their jobs during this pandemic. It's nothing against our employees, but maybe for 1 year we don't give them that COLA. You have a good paying job at the township now. We know it's a decent job. So I'm not being unfair to them, but it's the taxpayers' money. It's not our money in this time of need. I think everybody should, realize, the township employees are lucky that they haven't had to be laid off. So, and I'm not going against them. Everybody will think I am. I'm not. They do a fantastic job. That's fine. But maybe this year is we don't put that COLA in, and we find 2 or 3% in everywhere and say, look, this is the year we're going to give you a break. And if it has to be 5% next year after COVID's over, then it has to be. I just feel that's my opinion. I put it out there last meeting, and that's where I'm standing at.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Any other comments?
Follow up, Michael?
Yep, go ahead.
My thing is like, they're talking about reserves, depleting reserves. We don't know if we're taking any money out of reserves at this point in time. That if we went with zero, are we taking money out of the reserves? I'm not forward taking money that we have set aside for the disaster that's going to come down the road someday. I want that money left there, ready to go when we need it. But as I said, until we can see some numbers, how much money we're taking out of reserves, that would be my final. I'd rather increase before taking out of reserves, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Barbara?
Thanks. To Michael's point, I know in the past, Liam has brought back to council scenario A is, this is what we're proposing. These are areas that, we can take from reserves, and then what that would finally come out at, that would satisfy, understanding what would we have to take out of reserves in order to hit those marks. Is that possible, Liam?
Yeah, we could do, I could do somewhat of a dynamic model for, come up with our plan and then just show you on a separate sheet what if, like how much each is, and so
Yeah.
whether or not council wants to go ahead with it or not.
Right.
Okay. Any other, Brian?
Thanks, John. I mean, Jason makes a good point there. Maybe this is the year that we pull back on a staff increase. I don't know. But I do know the impact of falling behind, because at some point if you start not incrementally increasing wages, for example, and I'll use that as the example, then 2 or 3 or 5 years down the road, suddenly all of a sudden the applications for jobs or the quality of the application starts to drop off, and you can't get the number or quality of employees that you want. And all of a sudden now you do a market survey and by golly, we're way behind the ball now. That is a scenario that can happen if you do it too often in terms of not granting the increases consecutively. But the point is well made by Jason. That maybe, there's some merit in doing something of that nature. So it would be an interesting exercise to see if we did not give the cost of living increase to our staff, or the step increases for that matter, the merit increases or whatever you want to call them. If we did not do that, where would our budget, including the operational budget, where would that end up? And what services are people prepared, the people on this call, council members, what services are we prepared to cut? Because there's no question in my mind, with fuel, hydro, insurance, other expenses like that we have no control over and we must pay, what services are we prepared to cut back on? Because some of them are going to have to be cut. There's no way you can come back with a 0% budget increase and not cut services in light of all the expenses I just listed. Are we going to say we're going to run the plow routes once a day and that's it? We don't care how hard it snows after 4 o'clock. Or are we going to say we're not going to plow the sidewalks this year? We just heard from Jim that service is highly valued and highly appreciated, but we're not going to do it this year because we just can't afford it. Or are we going to say, I don't know, pick a service? But it would be interesting to do that exercise to see how much dollar figures we'd have to cut out as services to achieve that 0%. I mean, I'm not necessarily arguing against Jason's notion there, but I'm just looking for a little bit of, it may bring some light to the topic to see what the impact would truly be on our service levels if we did come back with a real 0% increase.
Yeah, and the ongoing costs can be incredibly high. I know 2 things that I experienced going through the social contract in Toronto and Mayor Rob Ford's 0 increases budgets, and they're still paying for some of those zeros now. It put them so far behind, so it is a balance act again. Yeah, Barb.
I do have to go. I apologize for having to exit the meeting now, but I think we're close to the end anyway, but I do have to exit, so please accept my apologies.
Okay, thanks for everything, Barb.
Take care, Barb.
Yep. But I do agree that we've got to keep it down in light of everything that's happening. So the other thing we have done in the past is we've had pulled out the what you're talking about, Brian, the issues that we have no control over. Like our insurance has gone up on that, what the OPP are charging, what that type of stuff, and it's really eye-opening to see how much our expenditures increase before we even say anything. So there's that to it. Any other questions or comments? I for one would like to see it kept as low as we can, but I think the overall in that 2 to 3 range for me is acceptable. So does that give you guys enough to go back?
John, Jason here. If I
Go ahead.
could.
Yep.
Yeah, I just, I guess I'd like to gauge maybe Dave's reaction towards what I said about the COLA increase, and that people will think I'm coming down on the employees. I'm not. It's just what I hear out in talking to people, they're just taxed to death, and I'm just talking about this year. It's such a specific this pandemic we're dealing with, and everybody's hurting. I just wonder what Dave's thoughts were when I said that. So.
Okay, let's hear them.
So if I didn't hear a comment like that, I think I would be surprised from council. I think it's a relevant comment. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. But to hit zero, so I mean, let's say we don't approve the COLA. It will set back that we may have to do some catch up in future years in relation to, because COLA doesn't just affect salaries, it affects all kinds of costs. It's going to affect the fire truck purchase. So that's an issue. This is a bit of a challenging year for us because I'm not sure we've really hit our stride on occupancy of new builds in comparison to what the demands are for service. And I think next year we'll have a better gauge on that, because really some of what I would call flat, let's say Flato West, some of that was occupied in 2019 and 2020. There's now starting to be, they're building more houses on an annual basis. So I think when we hit our stride, maybe in 2022, we'll see better and more consistent assessment growth. There's also still problems, I believe, with impacting those assessments into us. But when we start seeing 100 to 120 houses built per year just in Dundalk, plus other construction, I think assessment growth will level out and be consistent. Where 150,000, sorry. What was your number exactly there? How many, was that in assessment growth? What was your number, Liam?
Off the top of my head, without checking the numbers, I think we budgeted for supplementals of about 300,000, and I think I projected 150.
Yeah.
So we're below budget.
Okay. And what would that 150 be in assessment, total assessment? That's taxation billings of 150,000. So that's a 1.5. Let's rough figures. That's a 1.5% increase if we did nothing to cover our costs. When you look at, I think the development charges increase based on construction, which is more realistic to some of our more industrial commercial type costs that we see, was 2.3 for DCs, the construction growth index.
2.3 was the development charge index, yes.
Yeah, 2.3. So this is an excellent discussion. We need this kind of, guidance to see what we can bring it in at. And, no promises. We're going to try and see what we can do and provide those options of, what will a zero, I think it's really good to look at a 0% increase with the 1.5% growth, let's say, just as rough figures. What will that get us? And what will it not get us? And what will it do to, I think the big question is that we haven't even talked about, is are we maintaining our asset levels, or are we going backwards? Where some people would say is maybe we should be really looking at a 0, 1 or 2% and then putting a 2% hit only for asset management investments, to making sure those bridges are getting the work they need and so on, and the replacement. But that's if we're talking 0 and 1%, we're not even doing anything for really moving our assets forward.
Okay.
Just to give you more accurate numbers than a number out of the sky, I pulled up that projection file, and we actually budgeted for 282,279 of supplementals, and I'm projecting 159,000 of supplementals. So I was close to my 300, 150.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about that. Do you have that 150,000 projected? Do you have that in the bank? That's what we built, okay? You said in two. Okay, so you said in. Oh, yeah, that is projected. So when will you have a hard number? You said something about in 2 weeks you'll have more information on supplementals.
We'll get the actual 2020 growth assessment numbers from MPAC in about 2 or 3 weeks.
And that's really, really important because, you know, they may add in, you know, another 100,000 in taxation that we don't have yet because of the growth, but we'll wait and see. That's a really important piece in our calculations on seeing where 0 and 1 would come in at and what we can do and what we can't do.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not hearing any. And that was all you had, Liam?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Then I'll need a motion to resolve back to the special council meeting at, oh, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Can I make one comment? And in addition, just remember the 0.1 or 0.7% COLA also impacts some of our agreements, and they're indexed based on that 0.7. So we may want to look at this in 2 different pieces. Do we want to index our agreements and maybe not do the salary COLA? But anyway.
Yeah.
One thing I would not recommend is I would not recommend impacting step increases on employees.
Yep.
And I can say that doesn't impact me, but I just think out of fairness to get people to job rate, they've served their time, and if they anyway, another discussion.
Yep. Okay. I need a mover and seconder for us to resolve back to the special meeting at 12:27.
Hang on, John, we just need to vote on that motion that we had on the floor there in committee.
Okay, yep, sorry. We had the motion that we received the staff report, FIN 2020-033, and that we recommend the budget as presented, and that's with it, I guess, with the discussions we've had. Do we have anyone have anything further to say? Okay, is anyone opposed to that motion? All right, I'll declare that one passed. Thanks, Lindsay. And we'll need a mover and seconder to resolve back into the special council meeting at 12:28.
I'll move it, Michael.
Michael, okay, and I see Brian's hand up, so it's the 2. Any discussion on that? Okay, anyone opposed? All right, we're back in council. Then I need a mover and seconder to receive the budget for council to receive the second. I guess committee of the whole to receive the budget as information. So I need a mover and seconder for that.
I'll move it, John.
Okay, Jason. And how about we put Jim as the seconder? So
just a question on that motion, John. Should that motion not read the agenda or the budget as amended or as proposed, or how? Because we did propose some changes there.
Yeah.
I don't know how the clerk feels about that.
So right now, this motion is just to receive it as information.
But what are we receiving as information? Is it what Liam presented, or as we've discussed, or how do you, right? Do you understand what I'm
Oh,
trying to say?
yeah, no. Yeah,
I'm
you're
not-
right.
I'm
I'm
not
just
doing
trying
a very
to
good job.
No, I mean, we
Or
can add a
proposed capital budget as discussed, something like that, or, well, obviously we discussed it, but.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think as discussed. Liam, do you propose some wording as discussed?
I guess I propose the budget be amended as discussed.
Yeah, I would think something like that, because then that allows Liam to present back to council in January the capital budget as he has perceived the changes that council has discussed today, right?
So
Otherwise,
the motion, we could add a second clause that just says, and that council receive or that the budget be amended as discussed.
something like that,
Yeah.
I think.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry, John.
No, that's good. Is that okay with the mover and seconders?
I'll need someone to move an amendment.
Oh, okay. Martin and a seconder,
Yep.
Brian?
Yep.
Okay, so any discussion on that amendment? Okay, is anyone opposed to the amendment? Okay, that's passed. So it's the motion to receive the budget as information and
That the budget be amended as discussed.
right, and that's the full motion now. Any more discussion on that? Okay, is anyone opposed to that? Okay, that's passed. Confirming bylaw. I need a mover and seconder.
I'll move it.
And Michael, okay. Any discussion on the confirming bylaw? Or hearing none. Lindsay, if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, so a recorded vote was called on the confirming bylaw. Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Green is absent, Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Councillor Frew,
Jim was muted there when he voted.
Yes.
There he is.
Yep.
Councillor Shipston,
Ditto for Shipston.
Councillor Shipston.
Sorry, yes,
There he
yes.
is.
Thank you. By vote of 6-0, that's carried.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to apologize. I didn't mute my mic for my vote. Thanks, everybody. Good discussions today. I'm not even gonna ask for a mover for the adjournment because we all know who it's gonna be. So Brian moves. We adjourn at 12:34. Thanks,
Excellent.
everybody.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate all the work. Yep.
Thanks. See you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Take care.